divine and mysterious immortality. I start my cultivation by adding points as a butcher. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576, Robbery and Dismemberment. Oh woo. The leader of the Green Wolf howled in fear. It wanted to repeat the same trick, and kicked its limbs hard on the ground, ready to jump out. But how could Wei Hong let it succeed again? Above the leader of the Green Wolf, a wall of earth appeared again, and then pressed down hard on the ground, directly blocking the leader of the Green Wolf in the encirclement. Chi-chi. At this time, several golden threads cut across the Green Wolf leader who could not dodge. The huge body of the Green Wolf leader was instantly cut into several pieces by the golden threads, and blood instantly sprayed on the surrounding earth walls. The Green Wolf didn't even have time to scream, and was directly dismembered. Seeing this, Wei Hong waved his hand and withdrew all the spells. Well, not bad, the power of the spells is getting stronger and stronger. Looking at the more than 10 green wolves that were killed on the spot, Wei Hong smiled with satisfaction. With his current cultivation and strength, he only used a few combination spells to easily kill the monsters of the 7th and 6th levels of key training, leaving them with nowhere to escape. This is indeed enough to reflect Wei Hong's strength. If an ordinary cultivator in the late stage of key training was surrounded by these more than 10 green wolves, not to mention whether they could be killed, there might be some danger. After all, the green wolves know how to attack together. But the appearance of more than 10 green wolves was just a small trouble for Wei Hong. After getting rid of the green wolves, he did not stay for long, but continued on his way, preparing to enter the mountains to find spiritual herbs as soon as possible. So he continued to walk on the plain for almost 2 days, and then he saw the edge of the plain. Wei Hong exhaled lightly, his face relaxed and said, "I finally got out. I didn't expect it to look so close, but it would actually be so far." Not far in front of him was the edge of the plain. After walking out of the plain and walking forward for less than 10 miles, you can enter the mountains. After running on the plain for several days in a row, now I am finally going to get out of the plain. Wei Hong's mind also relaxed a little, so he walked briskly towards the mountains. At this time, the distance was only a few miles, and Wei Hong could clearly see that the mountains were lush and green, with various tall trees growing in them, and a large amount of green vegetation growing under the giant trees, and there were also many strange rocks. After leaving the plain, he entered a mountain road, and walked a few miles forward to the edge of the mountains. There is no specific entrance to the mountains in this area, and the terrain at the edge of the mountains is relatively flat, and there are not many obstacles, which allows people to easily enter the mountains. Wei Hong kept his pace and was about to step into the mountains. But just as he stepped into the edge of the mountains, his face suddenly changed. He didn't have time to think about it, and subconsciously slapped a Vajra talisman on his body, then touched the storage bag with his left hand, and several talismans appeared in his hand, and his right hand held the flying sword. This series of reactions were all completed in the blink of an eye. "Who is there? Come out!" Wei Hong shouted with a gloomy face. The reason why he reacted so violently was that he had sensed several auras that had locked onto him as soon as he entered the mountains. So Wei Hong reacted very quickly and immediately made responses and preparations. "Huh? This person reacted quickly. Hey, he found us, show up. Haha, another fat sheep has come, not bad." Just as Wei Hong called out the whereabouts of the people hiding in the dark, several figures came out from behind the giant tree with a playful laugh. One in front, one behind, one on the left, and one on the right, a total of 4 people, surrounded Wei Hong directly in the middle. Looking at the positions of these 4 people, it is obvious that they are very familiar with the situation. They should have done this more than once. Not only are they skilled, but they also know that many people will subconsciously relax their minds like Wei Hong as soon as they enter the mountains, which gives them the opportunity to surround and ambush. Wei Hong's face was gloomy, but he was not panicked at all. He observed with a cold eye and found that the cultivation bases of these 4 cultivators were not low. The 3 cultivators on the left and right and behind were all at the 8th level of key training, and the one in front was at the 9th level. No wonder they dared to surround Wei Hong. "What do you mean by stopping me?" Wei Hong asked coldly. At the same time, the spiritual power in his body had been secretly raised. The man who blocked his way in front of him was a middle-aged man with a sinister look. He was wearing a black robe, holding a flying sword in his right hand, and his hair was simply tied up with a black ribbon. His eyes looked at Wei Hong with greed and teasing, as if he was looking at a prey to be slaughtered. When the middle-aged man heard Wei Hong's question, he couldn't help laughing and said, "What do you mean? Haha, can't you see this? Haha, the four of us brothers want to borrow some spirit stones from you. If you know what's good for you, we'll let you go if you give us 5,000 spirit stones. If you can't, then we'll search for you ourselves. Haha, did you hear that? We'll let you go if you give us 5,000 spirit stones. We keep our word." At this time, a slightly younger man on the right with a narrow scar on his face also followed suit. The other two also laughed, as if they had already defeated Wei Hong. The man on the left was also a middle-aged man, but he had a long horse face and a pale face, which looked quite scary. The man behind him was a short and fat man, wearing a green leather armor, revealing his white belly, and a sinister smile appeared on his face from time to time. The four of them basically blocked Wei Hong's escape route. No matter which direction he fled, he would be blocked. As long as he was blocked for a while, the other three robbery cultivators would immediately attack him. Obviously, this was the confidence of the four robbery cultivators to ask for a high price. Even though Wei Hong was a cultivator of the 9th level of key training, the four of them were not afraid at all. Obviously, they knew the art of joint attack. Naturally, they were not afraid of a mere 9th level cultivator when they joined forces. Hearing the conditions of the black-robed man, Wei Hong sneered, 5,000 spirit stones? How dare you ask for it? Do you really think I'm a fat sheep? As soon as these words came out, the fat man behind the black-robed man couldn't help but snorted angrily, HMPH, kid, I think you don't know your situation yet? Don't be shameless. If you don't give it to us, we will kill you later and search slowly. The reason why the four of them didn't act immediately was because Wei Hong was a cultivator of the 9th level of key training. Although the four of them were not afraid, they did not want to waste their energy, and even if they started fighting, there might be uncontrollable risks, so they wanted to trick Wei Hong first. Who knew that Wei Hong was not sensible, which made the four men in black robes instantly want to kill him. Chapter 577 Grind Trashes. Are there only four of you here? Facing the threat from the short and fat monk, Wei Hong asked slowly. In fact, he had taken the opportunity to observe the surroundings secretly, and was sure that there were only four robbery cultivators in front of him. In this way, Wei Hong felt much more relieved. Although he was surrounded by four robbery cultivators, he was not panicked at all. With his current strength, even if he could not kill all four robbery cultivators, no one could stop him from leaving. Therefore, Wei Hong seemed quite calm, and all the previous performances were just deliberately revealed by him. However, when the short and fat monk saw that Wei Hong was so ignorant, he immediately became furious and said, "How dare you? The four of us brothers are more than enough to deal with you. If you still don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being rude. It seems that it's right. Since there are only four of you." Wei Hong was as cold as ice, and slowly scanned the circle with murderous intent, and then said, "Then please go on the road together." The short and fat monk's words had made him understand that there were indeed only four robbery cultivators here. In this case, he naturally had to strike first. After saying that, Wei Hong threw a few talismans at the black-robed man in front of him. The middle-aged man in black robe had already noticed something wrong when Wei Hong asked them just now, but before he could react, the short and fat monk had already said it, and it was too late to stop him at this time. In fact, it was because the black-robed man subconsciously thought that they had already eaten Wei Hong, so he reacted a bit slower. When he saw that Wei Hong dared to attack them first, he was immediately shocked and angry, and immediately shouted, "Hurry up and kill him." But Wei Hong threw out a few talismans and then suddenly jumped to the right. At the same time, he took out a few more talismans and threw them at the short and fat monk. At the same time, he had already made a seal with both hands when he pounced on the scarred man on the right. Chi-chi. Two thick vines covered with barbs broke out of the ground directly under the scarred man's feet and immediately spread up along his feet. Those dense barbs also pierced directly into the flesh of the scarred man's feet, binding him in place and making his feet bleed. It was not until this moment that the other three robbery cultivators, except the black-robed man, reacted. "Ah! How dare you? Boy, you are looking for death. Hurry up and make a move." The 3 robbery cultivators at the 8th level of key training suddenly became shocked and angry, and shouted loudly. They were surprised that Wei Hong dared to take the initiative when he was surrounded, and they were also furious that Wei Hong did not take the 4 of them seriously. The black-robed man was temporarily blocked by several water arrows. Although he waved his hand and cast several fireballs to block the water arrows, he was indeed delayed for some time, so he could only roar and rush towards Wei Hong. Although he did not believe that Wei Hong could kill his brother in such a short time, he was worried that the scarred man would not be able to stop Wei Hong and let him escape. The short and fat monk was also blocked by several water arrows. He took a wrong step and dodged to the side. In addition, the horse-faced man on the left was the farthest away from Wei Hong at this time. After seeing that everyone had taken action, he naturally did not want to fall behind, so he immediately followed a black-robed man and rushed towards Wei Hong, also fearing that Wei Hong would escape. Unfortunately, they did not understand what Wei Hong was thinking. When the scarred man was tied up, Wei Hong had already rushed in front of him. He was holding a flying sword in his right hand and pointed at the scarred man with his left hand. Bang! A solid earth wall appeared out of thin air and slammed into the scarred man. The scarred man's face had already turned ugly when he saw Wei Hong rushing towards him. He was determined not to let Wei Hong use him as a breakthrough to escape, otherwise he would have a hard time explaining. So before Wei Hong rushed over, he slapped a diamond talisman on himself to prevent any accidents, and then took out a flying knife to prepare for battle, and finally secretly made a gesture, ready to stop Wei Hong directly. Who knew that Wei Hong actually performed an earth wall technique and slammed the earth wall towards him flexibly. This caught the scarred man off guard, and for a moment he didn't know how to deal with it. His feet were tied tightly at this time, and it was impossible to dodge. He didn't respond until the earth wall was about to hit the scarred man. The scarred man held the knife with both hands, injected spiritual power into the flying knife, then raised the flying knife with both hands and chopped it forward fiercely, preparing to break the earth wall directly. Boom! The violent collision between the flying knife and the earth wall made a loud noise, and the earth wall was indeed directly split in half by him as the scarred man expected. But before the scarred man showed his joy, a sharp wooden thorn stabbed over fiercely, directly shattering the shield formed by the diamond talisman, and the next moment a flying sword slashed across silently. Swish! A big head flew directly into the sky, drew a short parabola in the air, and fell directly to the ground. Until death, the scarred man's eyes still revealed a look of horror and unbelievable unwillingness. And at the broken end of his neck, a column of blood spurted up more than 3 feet high. Boom! It was not until this time that the headless body fell to the ground with a bang. Next to him was Wei Hong, who took advantage of the moment when the scarred man was smashing the earth wall to launch a sneak attack. Wei Hong did not expect that he could actually succeed in one strike, which surprised him. Perhaps it was because these robbery cultivators thought they had him in their grasp, so they were still a little careless psychologically, especially their own defense was extremely weak, which allowed Wei Hong to kill one person quickly with just a little trick. Of course, this was also due to the fact that his breath-retaining technique was extremely effective. Although it did not have much effect against cultivators above the foundation building stage, it was still very useful among cultivators of the same level. Otherwise the scarred man would not have been unaware when he quietly sneaked up to him. After killing the scarred man, Wei Hong did not stop, as he did not forget that there were still 3 robbery cultivators who were eyeing him covetously, so he immediately turned around and rushed directly towards the short and fat cultivator this time. Ah! You boy, you are looking for death. Third brother? Boy, I will grind you to ashes. At this time, the 3 men in black robes had not yet approached Wei Hong, but they saw that the scarred man was killed on the spot after only 2 rounds. The 3 of them were immediately furious, and a chill flashed through their hearts. However, when they saw that Wei Hong did not take the opportunity to escape, but continued to attack the short and fat monk, the 3 men in black robes instantly became furious, and without any hesitation, they surrounded Wei Hong together. Chapter 578, Earth Trapping Technique. Boy, I will make you die to avenge the third brother. The black-robed man was furious, and the anger in his eyes was almost tangible. He didn't expect that just because he was a beat slower, the scarred man was killed on the spot, which made the black-robed man hate Wei Hong very much, and this also caused heavy casualties among the 4 brothers. In anger, the black-robed man no longer held back, and rushed towards Wei Hong quickly, throwing out several fireball talismans, and at the same time, The spiritual power in his body was also poured into the flying sword in his hand. Not only that, the black-robed man did not forget to perform an earth thort technique, trying to stop Wei Hong's steps, so as to prevent the short and fat monk from following the footsteps of the scarred man. Seeing Wei Hong rushing towards him, the short and fat monk felt a chill in his heart, and immediately threw a few wooden thort talismans at Wei Hong, and then pasted a diamond talisman on himself, and then stared at Wei Hong. The other horse-faced monk was not willing to lag behind. His speed was a little slower, so he could only make canned gestures and cast a trapping spell, hoping to temporarily delay Wei Hong's steps. Then he actually took out a wheel blade with a cold glow from his storage bag, and with the help of his spiritual power, he threw the wheel blade directly at Wei Hong. Even Wei Hong had never seen this kind of wheel blade magic weapon, and he was a little surprised for a while, but he was not panicked at all. As early as when he killed the scarred man, he slapped 2 magic talismans on his feet, and now he calmly slapped another golden armor talisman on his body. Buzz! A golden armor suddenly appeared on Wei Hong's body, protecting him tightly. Facing the siege of the 3 black-robed men, he was not afraid at all. Wei Hong first lightly stepped on his feet and evaded the fireballs and several wooden thorns with great flexibility. With his speed, these spells can still be easily avoided. After dodging the attacks of the talismans, Wei Hong kicked the ground hard with his feet, and the whole person suddenly jumped up more than 10 feet high. There happened to be a big tree next to him. He kicked the trunk hard in mid-air to gain leverage, and actually dodged the earth thort technique performed by the black-robed man and the earth trap technique performed by the horse-faced monk. Come on, die! Seeing that Wei Hong had rushed in front of him without any damage, the short and fat monk was shocked and angry at first, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, he held the flying knife in both hands and chopped at Wei Hong fiercely. Wei Hong sneered and pointed directly. A ball of water shield blocked him, and there was a cold ice spear hidden behind the water shield. Swish! The flying knife in the short and fat monk's hand chopped on the water shield. Although it directly chopped into the water shield, it seemed to be stuck after half of the chop in, and was directly wrapped in the water shield and could not be pulled out for a while. At this time, the ice spear hidden behind the water shield shot out with a whoosh. The short and fat monk didn't expect Wei Hong to be so insidious. Such a close distance made him unable to react at all. He only had time to scream, and the ice spear pierced into the shield in front of the short and fat monk. The shield was instantly shattered, and then the ice spear also pierced into the shoulder of the short and fat monk. Just because the short and fat monk subconsciously twisted his body, the ice spear that was originally going to pierce his throat could only pierce his shoulder instead. Ah! The short and fat monk screamed and his face turned pale. But Wei Hong would not stop at all. After he succeeded in injuring the short and fat monk, he immediately rushed forward and chopped down the flying sword in his hand. At the same time, several golden threads appeared around the short and fat monk. The short and fat monk's reaction was much slower due to the injury, and his movements were even slower. Seeing Wei Hong slashing at him with a sword, the short and fat monk finally showed fear in his eyes. In panic, he only had time to throw out a few more talismans, and then he subconsciously retreated. Bang, bang, bang. Several ice cones hit the golden armor on Wei Hong's body, making a dull sound, but failed to break the golden armor, just shaking it a little. The short and fat monk's retreat directly ruined his life. Ah! Those golden silk threads were extremely inconspicuous, and the short and fat monk naturally didn't notice them in panic, so he retreated madly and directly hit 2 golden silk threads. Puff! The short and fat monk's sturdy body was instantly split into several pieces by the golden silk threads. He only had time to scream before he lost all his vitality. Blood was everywhere, and the body parts were scattered on the ground. The scene looked extremely bloody and cruel, which made the black-robed man and the horse-faced monk who were rushing over here change their faces instantly and stopped in a hurry. You devil! Looking at the short and fat monk who was directly dismembered, the horse-faced monk pointed at Wei Hong with a pale face, his lips trembling slightly, and his eyes looking at Wei Hong were filled with incredible fear. Who would have thought that the 4 brothers had set an ambush and surrounded Wei Hong at the beginning, and even thought they had him, but they didn't expect the situation to take a sharp turn for the worse. In just a few encounters, 2 of the 4 brothers were killed directly, and now only he and the boss black-robed man were left. The strong smell of blood instantly dispersed the anger in the horse-faced monk's mind, especially when he saw Wei Hong standing there with a sword and looking at him with a look of looking at a dead person, A lingering chill rose in the heart of the horse-faced monk, making him feel like he fell into an ice cave, and the whole person was completely sober. The black-robed man was even more shocked at this time. He stared at Wei Hong with a face full of doubts, his eyes were full of horror and disbelief, and the original anger had long been thrown out of the sky. What a joke. Facing such a powerful monk who could kill the 8th level of key training quickly, the black-robed man could not see the reality even if he was confident. If he still wanted to continue to avenge the 2 dead short and fat monks, he might be the next one to be killed. You know, the black-robed man was also at the 9th level of key training, but when he faced the scarred monk and the short and fat monk, he could not kill them quickly in just 2 encounters. Such strength is definitely far superior to him. Especially looking at the speed at which Wei Hong cast spells, it was almost the same as instant casting, which was not comparable to him at all. At this time, they wanted to rob such a powerful monk, which was simply ignorant of life and death, which was equivalent to hitting a piece of iron plate. The death of the short and fat monk and the scarred monk was the result of hitting a piece of iron plate. The black-robed monk and the horse-faced monk couldn't help but feel a little fortunate at this time. Fortunately, Wei Hong's first target was not them. With such thoughts, the two subconsciously looked at each other. Go. The next moment, the black-robed man and the horse-faced monk shouted at the same time. The 2 men fled quickly to the left and right, obviously having completely lost their fighting spirit. Chapter 579, A World of Difference. The black-robed man and the horse-faced monk were like 2 sharp arrows, one on the left and the other on the right, fleeing quickly in the direction away from Wei Hong. They obviously knew that with only 2 people left, they could not pose any threat to Wei Hong at all. If they did not evacuate, perhaps all 4 of them would be buried here. At this moment, saving their lives had become the only thought in the minds of the black-robed man and the horse-faced monk. As for the idea of revenge for their brother, it had long been covered by fear and it was impossible for them to remember it. Moreover, while the black-robed man and the horse-faced monk were fleeing frantically, they would look back from time to time to see if Wei Hong was chasing them. This embarrassed look was completely different from the arrogance at the beginning. However, Wei Hong watched the 2 black-robed men flee coldly, without any intention of chasing them. Wei Hong did not relax until the 2 black-robed men were completely out of his sight. In fact, it was not that he did not want to kill the black-robed man and the horse-faced monk together to eliminate future troubles. It was just that after casting several spells in a row, he had little spiritual power left in his body. Moreover, the black-robed man was still a 9th level key training being. He did not know whether the other party had a killer move. Since the other party wanted to escape, he simply let the 2 of them escape to avoid any unexpected situations. This was definitely a safe choice. Wei Hong did not want to take too many risks. Of course, if the black-robed man and the horse-faced monk fought to the death and were still thinking of revenge for their dead brothers, then Wei Hong would not be afraid at all, and he could even keep the 2 of them completely. Alice, what is this? I haven't really started looking for spiritual herbs, and I have encountered monsters and robbery cultivators one after another. What kind of luck do I have? When Wei Hong thought of his encounters along the way, he couldn't help but sigh with a bitter smile on his face. He didn't expect that he would encounter monsters and robbery cultivators before entering the mountains. This situation made Wei Hong not know whether to sigh about his good luck or bad luck. He shook his head and suppressed all the thoughts in his mind. Wei Hong collected the storage bags of the short and fat monk and the scarred monk one after another, and then a ball of fire burned the bodies of the 2 to ashes. After performing the breath-retaining technique again to restrain his own breath, he identified the direction a little bit, and walked into the depths of the mountains to start looking for spiritual herbs. Bai Ling, the treasure-hunting mouse, was released by him again to stand on his shoulder, hoping to use the treasure-hunting mouse's talent to find useful spiritual herbs for it. Wei Hong's face was full of vigilance, and he didn't dare to relax at all. The previous incident was a typical mistake. He didn't want to fall into the encirclement of monks or monsters again. He held a golden armor talisman and 3 water arrow talismans in his left hand, and held a flying sword in his right hand. The whole person kept moving forward at a moderate speed, and kept scanning around, hoping to find all dangers as early as possible. After entering the mountains, Wei Hong's vision became dim, mainly because of the huge trees, which blocked most of the sunlight, but it did not affect his movements, but it was not so dazzling. There were piles of fallen leaves under his feet, and stepping on them inevitably made a slight sound. Fortunately, There were other sounds mixed in the surrounding mountains and forests, so the sound Wei Hong made was not obvious. The treasure-hunting rat stood on his shoulder, holding his clothes tightly with its hind paws, and its front paws occasionally scratched the air, but there was no clear direction. Wei Hong was not discouraged, but continued to grope forward. In fact, he did not have a clear destination. After all, no one knew where the spiritual flowers and herbs would grow, so whether he could encounter them depended entirely on luck, and he was not very sure that he could find them. After walking forward for more than 10 miles, Wei Hong slowly walked out of the dense forest. During this period, he did not encounter any monsters, not even a cultivator, but only some small animals such as hares and birds. The journey was peaceful. Of course, he did not encounter any spiritual herbs. After walking out of the dense forest behind him, Wei Hong saw many undulating hills in front of him. These hills were not very high, ranging from more than 10 feet to dozens of feet in height. Moreover, these hills were all made up of various strange-shaped rocks. They looked difficult to climb, and many vines and plants grew from the gaps between the rocks, which was not bad. Tisk, the terrain in the mountains is indeed strange. I didn't expect to see such rocky hills. Wei Hong was amazed. However, the treasure-hunting mouse did not react at all, so he could only raise his feet and continue to move forward. During this period, he also climbed 1 or 2 hills, but there were no valuable spiritual flowers and herbs on the hills, mostly some ordinary plants. Faced with such a situation, Wei Hong was a little disappointed, but he knew that this could not be rushed. After walking through the rocky hilly area, he came to the high mountain area again, where gullies and valleys were crisscrossed, and the terrain became complicated. Wei Hong became more careful and began to walk slowly up the mountain. At this time, the flying sword in his hand slashed out without any warning. Puff! A colorful venomous snake that was about to attack was directly cut into 2 pieces by a sword. The broken snake body continued to twist after falling to the ground. Hey, black-bellied snake! Wei Hong recognized the origin of this venomous snake at a glance. This is just a first-grade inferior venomous snake, which is naturally no threat to him. He swung the sword again to split the black-bellied snake's head in 2, and then continued to move forward carefully. Entering this place, Wei Hong could clearly feel that the surrounding aura seemed to have become much more dangerous. He did not dare to be careless at all, because using the golden armor talisman would expose his aura, generate spiritual power fluctuations, and might also attract the attention of some monsters, so Wei Hong did not take any protection at this time. But he remained vigilant, and he could react immediately if anything happened. Puff! Wei Hong swung the sword again, and a leopard cat like a first-grade inferior was cut into 2 pieces by him again. Along the way, he encountered many attacks, but they were all first-level middle and lower-grade monsters, which were not very powerful and did not pose any threat to him. However, this also made Wei Hong more and more vigilant, fearing that he would be attacked by a first-level upper-grade monster at any time. Fortunately, he restrained his breath tightly. If it were not seen by the naked eye, some monsters would not be able to detect Wei Hong's existence, which also avoided a lot of trouble. I have been walking for so long, let alone spiritual flowers and herbs, and I haven't found anything valuable. Is it possible that I will return empty-handed this time? Wei Hong felt helpless, but he had no choice. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580 The opposite of what was expected. 2 hours later. The sky gradually darkened, and night soon fell. Wei Hong knew that it was definitely not suitable to continue walking in the dark, because some special monsters like to appear in the dark, and if you use lighting spells or torches in the dark, it is more likely to attract monsters to attack, and the danger will be greatly increased. So he stopped decisively. There happened to be a cave nearby that was sheltered from the wind. When Wei Hong saw this cave, his eyes lit up and he immediately chose it as his habitat for the night. He immediately raised his feet and walked towards the cave. As soon as he approached the cave entrance, he smelled a strong smell of fishy smell and a hint of blood. Wei Hong's face condensed slightly. It was obvious that this cave was not an unknown place, so he first slapped a Vajra talisman on himself, and then walked into the cave carefully. The cave was not deep. Just after walking a few steps inside, he heard a violent running sound, and even the cave was shaken. Wei Hong's face was a little alert at first, but when he sensed the breath deep in the cave, his face suddenly relaxed. At this moment, the strong vibration had already arrived in front of him, and it also brought a strong smell and a strong wind. It seemed that a huge monster was rushing straight towards him. Wei Hong looked intently and saw that it was clearly a huge cave bear that was running out of the cave. Obviously, this gray cave bear had noticed Wei Hong's presence, so it took the lead in launching an attack and wanted to kill Wei Hong on the spot. It's really a gray cave bear, I'm in for a treat tonight. Wei Hong chuckled calmly, and then stretched out his hand and waved it. Puff! Exclamation mark. Just as the gray cave bear was about to pounce in front of him, several extremely sharp and hard earth spikes broke through the ground and pierced the gray cave bear's body very accurately, holding it firmly in the air. Although this gray cave bear was not small in size, it was only a first-class medium-quality monster. It posed no threat to Wei Hong at all, and could not even last a round in his hands. It lost its life before it could even scream. Blood dripped down instantly, making the bloody smell in the cave even stronger. Wei Hong didn't care at all. He waved his hand to remove the spell, and then walked into the cave first. After confirming that there were no other creatures in the cave, he cast a gust of wind to blow all the smell and blood of the gray cave bear out of the cave. Then he picked up the flying sword and dug out a huge stone about the same size as the cave entrance, directly blocking the cave entrance. At the same time, he also arranged a small warning spell behind the cave entrance, which was extremely cautious. It's done. It should be safe now. Wei Hong smiled and dragged the body of the gray cave bear to the depths of the cave. Cutting meat, making fire, roasting. The series of actions were extremely quick, and all kinds of tools could be found in the storage bag. After a while, Wei Hong had already eaten the delicious barbecue. Although it is only the first-level medium-quality monster meat, it is a different flavor to be able to eat it here. Wei Hong took a big bite of the barbecue, with a satisfied look on his face. Long before he set out to find spiritual herbs, he had already prepared to spend some time outside. Therefore, all kinds of supplies were naturally prepared in advance. Of course, he would not eat dry food again if he could eat such fresh monster meat. After eating several large pieces of barbecue in a row, Wei Hong was full. He cut off a large part of the remaining cave bear meat for later food, and peeled off the cave bear skin to avoid waste. Then he spread a monster skin on the ground and began to meditate and rest. There was no talk all night. Although he could not see the sky outside in the cave, Wei Hong was ready to open his eyes just when the sky was just dawning. After washing up and finishing his breakfast, Wei Hong got up and left the cave. After moving the boulder away, a not-so-strong light enveloped him. Keep searching, I hope to gain something. Wei Hong murmured softly, and continued to move towards the depths of the mountains. But the results are often counterproductive. For several days in a row, Wei Hong didn't gain anything at all. There were no spiritual flowers and herbs, let alone spiritual fruits and mineral materials. It can be said that he found nothing, which made him very depressed. Damn it, is it so difficult to find a spiritual herb? Wei Hong let out a sigh of frustration. He looked at the treasure-hunting rat on his shoulder, but shook his head helplessly. After all, it was not the treasure-hunting rat's fault that he couldn't find the spiritual herb. He borrowed the treasure-hunting rat just to try his luck. Who would have thought that his luck didn't seem to be very good? Depressed, Wei Hong randomly chose a direction to continue searching. One day, he had just climbed to the halfway point of a mountain. When he looked forward subconsciously, he found that there was an extremely spacious and huge valley more than 20 miles ahead, and the valley was connected to a very long and wide abyss, extending into the depths of the mountain. This discovery immediately refreshed Wei Hong's spirit. He immediately focused his attention and found that the valley was surrounded by mountains of varying heights. The valley was also lush and green, with various strange rocks and some slowly crawling figures, but the distance was too far to see clearly for a while. Wei Hong's face was slightly condensed, and after thinking for a while, he slowly moved towards the valley. Since he was here, he naturally wanted to go over and see what was in the valley. After walking down the halfway point of the mountain, he slowly walked towards the valley. Along the way, he not only pasted 2 magic talismans on his legs, but also used the breath-holding technique to the extreme, not daring to leak a trace of breath. The valley was surrounded by high mountains and the road was not easy to walk. Wei Hong walked for more than 2 hours before he came to a place not far from the deep valley. At this time, He was about 4 or 5 miles away from the deep valley. For the sake of caution, he did not go directly to the deep valley, but slowly climbed up a high mountain outside the deep valley. Wei Hong, who had restrained his breath, was like a stone, and did not attract the attention of any monsters. At this time, a breeze suddenly blew from the direction of the deep valley. Wei Hong, who had not yet climbed halfway up the mountain, suddenly smelled a strong and fishy smell. What's that smell? Wei Hong's face changed drastically, and he became alert subconsciously. However, nothing happened around him, which made him feel relieved and confused at the same time. With doubts in his heart, he slowly climbed to the halfway point of the mountain. Only then did he look far away from the halfway point of the mountain towards the deep valley, but he was instantly stunned. Hiss, what is that? Chapter 581 Snake Abyss. After just one look, Wei Hong froze in place as if he had been cast into a spell. At this moment, he felt cold all over. All the hairs on his body instantly stood up, and he even felt his scalp tingling. And his eyes were full of horror and shock, and the whole person was directly frightened and stunned. It was just because the scene he saw was too horrifying. In the huge valley a few miles away, there were countless seas of snake monsters lying. Countless snake monsters were crawling slowly in the valley, or shaking their heads and tails, or lying on the ground, or playing with each other. In short, all you can see are all kinds of snake monsters, which made Wei Hong feel terrified at just one look. Moreover, the snake monsters in the valley are not only countless in number, but also very many in variety, and even of various grades. It is simply a natural snake cave. Golden ring snake, black-bellied snake, colorful giant python, purple striped unicorn python, flying double-winged snake, black water snake. After being stunned for a long time, Wei Hong subconsciously began to carefully identify the various snake monsters in the deep valley. Among the countless snake monsters, there are all grades from the key training stage to the foundation building stage. The size ranges from the thickness of an arm to a diameter of several feet, or from more than 3 feet long to more than 10 feet long. There are countless snake monsters that can be named and those that cannot be named. In the deep valley, the outermost ones are all key training stage snake monsters. The deeper into the center of the valley, the higher the grade of those snake monsters. Wei Hong even saw that in the most central area, there are more than a dozen huge pythons and demon snakes with a size of tens of feet. Even though they are several miles away, even if those terrifying monsters do not deliberately release their breath, they still make Wei Hong feel suffocated. Needless to say, those more than 10 snake monsters are definitely terrifying beings above the golden core stage. Moreover, there is a wide abyss in the center of the valley. The abyss is just there, which is enough to give Wei Hong a very terrifying feeling, as if it is ready to devour anyone. When Wei Hong saw these horrifying scenes clearly, he restrained his breath tightly and dared not make any sound, fearing that he would attract the attention of those giant snakes. Once targeted, let alone a small 9th-level key training cultivator like him, even a foundation-building cultivator would not be able to escape. Just thinking about the overwhelming giant snakes surrounding him is enough to make people despair and suffocate. Oh my god! Wei Hong thought in horror, the number of giant snakes here must be at least millions, or even tens of millions. What exactly is this place? He couldn't figure out why he had never heard of such a gathering place for snake monsters, and why there were no high-level cultivators coming here to hunt monsters. It really puzzled him. But he didn't have time to think about this problem now. Every pore in his body was reminding him to leave this place quickly. Let's go, we must leave immediately. Once we are discovered, it will be over. Wei Hong couldn't help but have such a thought in his mind. He didn't dare to look any further. He immediately turned around and walked slowly down the mountain carefully, not daring to make the slightest sound. He was trembling with fear. After finally getting away from it, Wei Hong no longer controlled his speed, but began to run away from the deep valley with all his strength, as if there was a giant snake chasing him from behind. After running for more than an hour, his speed slowed down. Wei Hong stopped beside a big tree and let out a long breath. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, "It's too scary. If you fall into the encirclement of millions of snake monsters, even a giant stage cultivator may not be able to escape." When he thought of the countless giant snakes, he couldn't help but feel his scalp tingling even at such a distance. If an ordinary person saw this scene, he might be scared to death. But when he thought of the number of snake monsters, Wei Hong couldn't help but feel greedy. If we can kill all the giant snakes in the deep valley, won't we no longer have to worry about vitality points? Such a thought flashed through his mind uncontrollably. But he also knew that this was definitely a delusion, at least it was absolutely impossible to do it before reaching the nascent soul stage. However, Wei Hong changed his mind at this time. If I can't do it in the short term, then after I advance to the foundation establishment stage, can I brush those key training stage snake monsters outside the deep valley? Even if there are at least millions of key training stage snake monsters, this is a huge amount of vitality points. While continuing to evacuate, he secretly thought in his heart, such a great place, it would be a waste for Wei Hong to give up directly. Therefore, he couldn't help but secretly think of those giant snakes in the deep valley. He even made up his mind in his heart that after he was promoted to the foundation establishment stage, he would find an opportunity to brush a wave of vitality points outside the deep valley to see what he could harvest. Besides, the materials from those snake monsters can also be sold. Even if the materials from the key training snake monsters are not very valuable, a small amount of spiritual stones can be accumulated. It can not only earn vitality points but also spiritual stones. Such a good thing is not easy to find. After making up his mind, Wei Hong no longer thought about it, but walked towards the outside of the mountains. He could say that he had no gains on this trip to find medicine. It seems that the treasure hunting rats can't get something every time. It's not easy to find spiritual herbs. Wei Hong couldn't help feeling depressed when he thought that there was no gain on this trip. But this is the reality, and he can only accept it helplessly. After dispelling the depression in his heart, Wei Hong began to rush on his way. It has been 7 or 8 days since he went out this time, and he has not gained anything, so he doesn't plan to continue looking, but plans to return to Kangshan Fairy City first. Since the way of going out to find medicine is temporarily unavailable, he can only think of other ways. If it really doesn't work, he will honestly help people repair the array, and then accumulate enough spirit stones, and then use the spirit stones to buy the spirit herbs back. This trip also made Wei Hong realize that it seemed a bit unreliable to go out to look for medicine, and he had already given up the idea of going out in the future. It's better to be safe and accumulate spirit stones honestly. With this idea in mind, Wei Hong spent a few days and finally returned to Kangshan Fairy City safely. After returning to Kangshan Fairy City, he immediately found Ling Zhu, returned the treasure hunting mouse by Ling, and chatted with Ling Zhu for a while before leaving. From that day on, Wei Hong never left Kangshan Fairy City again. Chapter 582, Refining the Foundation Establishment Pill Together. 5 years later. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the world of immortal cultivation, some high-level cultivators may spend more than 5 years in seclusion. For cultivators, 5 years is actually very short. For a huge city like Kangshan Immortal City that has stood for hundreds of years, 5 years is not a long time. But in Kangshan Immortal City, too many things have happened in 5 years. Every year, a large number of independent cultivators come here to admire its reputation, and of course many independent cultivators have fallen for various reasons. Kangshan Immortal City is still prosperous, but a batch of cultivators have been quietly replaced. However, for Wei Hong, 5 years is not short at all. After returning from that trip to find medicine, he has never left Kangshan Immortal City again. For 5 years, he has stayed in the Immortal City every day and has never gone out. Moreover, his life has become extremely monotonous and boring. Every day, he either repairs the array or practices, and from time to time he draws various talismans as a supplement to his own foundation. He first bought 8 first-class talismans from the black market of Kingayan Mountain, and then looted several talismans during the turbulent period. These are the best of the first-class talismans. Once drawn, regardless of the price, the effect of each talisman is very good. Therefore, Wei Hong often took time to practice drawing various talismans in addition to work in cultivation, both to improve the realm of talismans and to increase his own means. After settling down in the fairy city, he once again cultivated low-level spiritual insects such as yellow flies in the stone house. After all, this low-level spiritual insect is related to the acquisition of vitality points, and it is also the only source of all his vitality points at present, so he attaches great importance to it and cultivates it again. After 5 years, he has obtained a large number of vitality points, so he has already maxed out all kinds of talismans and spells to the limit, and has become extremely familiar with all kinds of newly acquired talismans. It can be said that among the cultivators in the key training period, Wei Hong is definitely the first talisman painter. He does not believe that there are people in the same level who are more proficient in drawing talismans than him. Of course, he did not completely give up on alchemy. He also bought 3 first-class top-grade recipes in the black market, plus the ones he exchanged from Dingzhou and the ones he loaded during the turmoil in the market. He learned all 10 recipes. He also used vitality points to max out the recipes of these recipes to the limit. Although he might be lacking in practice, his theoretical knowledge has long been very solid. As long as he can spare the energy to practice more, he will be able to quickly master all the recipes he has learned. These are just the inconspicuous changes in Wei Hong's daily life, and no one knows about them except himself. As early as 2 years ago, his cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level of key training. There was really no room for improvement. Except for breaking through to the foundation building stage, his cultivation could not be improved at all. Of course, in addition to daily practice and drawing talismans, Wei Hong still put more energy on repairing the array plate. After all, this was related to the speed of his accumulation of spirit stones. Wei Hong took on business from several array stores at the same time, and there were endless array plates to repair every day. Therefore, his daily life became monotonous and busy. But the result of being busy was satisfactory to Wei Hong, because he could earn at least 2,000 spiritual stones every month. Excluding various expenses in daily life, including elixirs, etc., he could save about 1,000 every month, and more than 10,000 spiritual stones in a year. During this period, Wei Hong also bought 3 spiritual medicines through various channels: jade marrow, cheyenne fruit, amethyst flower. Looking at the 3 jade boxes in front of him, Wei Hong gently read out the names of the spiritual medicines stored in the jade boxes. These 3 spiritual medicines are one of the main medicines needed to refine the foundation building pill. Each of these 3 spiritual medicines is worth more than 10,000 spiritual stones. The most expensive one is the cheyenne fruit, which costs about 20,000 spiritual stones. After buying these 3 spiritual medicines, Wei Hong's spiritual stones accumulated for 5 years were almost gone. But he did not regret it at all, because the purpose of accumulating spiritual stones was to buy spiritual medicines. Besides, as long as he could advance to the foundation building stage, he felt that it was worth spending any amount of spiritual stones. After a careful inspection, he found nothing unusual before he put the 3 jade boxes into the storage bag, and then said to himself, "It's almost done. I spent 5 years accumulating spiritual medicines. Now the last purple crystal flower is in hand. It's almost time to start refining pills. I think fellow Taoists Wang and Zhang should have prepared everything." Since buying the first spiritual medicine, Wei Hong found an alchemist in the alchemy workshop under the recommendation of Yuan Qingyan. This person is called Qin Hui, and he is a second-level middle-grade alchemist. For Wei Hong, he is definitely a real alchemy master and a person he looks up to. And when he found the alchemist, there were also 2 other cultivators at the peak of key training who wanted to find Qin Hui to refine foundation building pills for them. The 2 cultivators were a man and a woman, named Wang Xianxi and Zhang Yuan. So under the matchmaking of the alchemist Qin Hui, the 3 of them hit it off. In simple terms, the 3 of them worked together to buy a set of spiritual medicines for refining foundation building pills. As long as the spiritual medicines were gathered, the alchemist Qin Hui could start refining pills. The refined foundation building pills would also be distributed according to the contribution of Wei Hong and the other 2. The so-called contribution is based on how many spiritual medicines each person has taken out. The one who contributed the most will be given priority, and then the one who contributed the most will be ranked down in order until the last person. Of course, refining pills is not 100% successful. If the pills fail, it means that the efforts and contributions of the 3 of them will be in vain, and then the alchemist Qin Hui will not charge a penny. If the pills are successful, they will have to pay the alchemist Qin Hui 3,000 spiritual stones. Even if the pills are successfully produced, the rate of pills is unpredictable, and even the alchemist cannot control it, so there will be a shortage of pills. For example, if only 1 pill is produced this time, then this foundation building pill can only be obtained by the one who took out the most spiritual medicines. If 2 pills are produced, only the first 2 can get them. Only when more than 3 pills are produced can Wei Hong and the other 3 get a foundation building pill each. Wei Hong and the other 2 had already discussed the relevant countermeasures for this situation. According to the results of their discussion, if less than 3 pills were produced, the people who were behind and failed to obtain the foundation building pills would receive compensation, and the minimum amount must not be less than 5,000 spirit stones, which would be a consolation. Wei Hong had no choice but to agree to this because of the reality. Because according to the progress of the three of them in collecting spiritual medicines, he happened to be the one who produced the least spiritual medicine. I hope that more than 3 pills can be produced. Chapter 583, Refining the Foundation Establishment Pill Together. Alchemy Workshop. With the 3 kinds of spiritual medicines he collected, Wei Hong came to the alchemy workshop in the east of the city. After reporting his name to the guard, he was allowed to enter the alchemy workshop. He had been here twice, so he soon came to the alchemy room dedicated to the alchemist Qin Hua. Here, Wei Hong also met the other 2 monks who had funded the alchemy. Haha, the 2 Taoist friends are really punctual. Wei Hong smiled and greeted them first. He and Wang Xianzi had met several times before and after because of the collection of spiritual medicines, and they had dealt with each other before, so they were not strangers to each other. At the same time, Wei Hong also wanted to make friends with him. After all, Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan were both cultivators at the peak of key training, and if the alchemy was successful this time, at least one of them would be able to obtain a foundation-building pill, which means that at least one of them would have the possibility of becoming a foundation-building cultivator, so making friends with these 2 cultivators would naturally only benefit Wei Hong and not harm him. Wang Xianzi, who looked to be about 30 years old and had a gentle and elegant appearance, immediately smiled warmly when he saw Wei Hong appear. Haha, fellow Taoist Wei is here? It's not that we are on time, but I am a little anxious and arrived a little early. Zhang Yuan, who was beautiful, with a lily bun on her head and wearing a goose-yellow palace skirt, bowed slightly to Wei Hong and said, "Hello, fellow Taoist Wei." Seeing Zhang Yuan, Wei Hong felt like he was seeing a lady from a noble family. He quickly returned the greeting and said with a smile, "Hello, fellow Taoist Zhang." After the 3 of them greeted each other, they walked into the alchemy room together. At this time, the alchemist Qin Hua was sitting cross-legged on a cushion. Seeing Wei Hong and the other 2 coming together, he slowly stood up. "Hello, Senior Qin." Wei Hong and the other 2 saluted in unison. Qin Hua smiled and waved his hand and said, "No need to be polite, 3 fellow Taoists, you came together today. I guess you have gathered all the spiritual medicines needed to refine the foundation-building pill, right?" Qin Hua immediately told the purpose of Wei Hong and the other 2's visit. The alchemist Qin Hua was a middle-aged man who looked ordinary, but he had black hair and a tuft of black beard. He was kind and didn't have the airs of a foundation-building cultivator. Wang Xianzi stepped forward and replied with a smile, "Haha, Senior, you have a keen eye. Yes, the 3 of us have indeed gathered all the spiritual medicines. Now we need to trouble you." "Why trouble? You pay me spiritual stones and I make the pills for you. It's just a fair trade. Besides, I can't guarantee that the pills will be successful. If they fail, I hope you 3 Taoist friends won't be disappointed." Qin Hua stroked his beard and reminded them lightly. Wei Hong and Zhang Yuan had no reaction, but Wang Xianzi's smile was a bit forced. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Haha, I naturally believe in you, Senior, just let go and make the pill." "Yes, we all believe in you, Senior, you don't have to worry. Senior, with your skills, refining a furnace of foundation-building pills is not a piece of cake." Wei Hong and Zhang Yuan also spoke up, not only to show their attitudes but also to praise Qin Hua. Qin Hua was very pleased to hear this. He stroked his tiger whiskers again, then nodded and said, "Don't worry, 3 Taoist friends, I will do my best and will not let you down." In fact, Qin Hua also knew what Wei Hong and the other 2 were thinking. Each of them had spent at least tens of thousands of spirit stones to collect spiritual medicines. This was not a small amount of money. No one could accept such a loss. Once he really failed to refine the pill, although Wang Xianzi and the other 2 dared not do anything, his own reputation would be damaged. Therefore, no matter what was reasonable, he would do his best to refine this furnace of foundation-building pills. Moreover, Qin Hua was a second-level middle-grade alchemist, and he had accumulated a lot of experience in refining foundation-building pills. With his skills, he must have a great chance of success. Faced with Qin Hua's assurance, Wei Hong and the other 2 were also delighted. Qin Hua immediately laughed and scolded, "Okay, I don't know what you are thinking. Come on, take out all the spiritual medicines and let me see. Hey, take it right away. The spiritual medicine is here, please take a look, Senior." Mine is also here, please take a look, senior. Upon hearing this, Wang Xianzi and the other two immediately took out the spiritual medicines they collected from their storage bags and placed them on a jade table. From left to right, there were a total of 12 jade boxes. In other words, it takes 12 main medicines to refine a furnace of foundation building pills. Among them, Wei Hong took 3 and placed them on the far right. The other 9 were provided by Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan, with Wang Xianzi taking 5 and Zhang Yuan taking 4. In other words, Wei Hong took out the least spiritual medicine among the 3 of them. According to the agreement, he must be the last one when distributing the foundation building pills. Faced with such a situation, Wei Hong secretly sighed helplessly in his heart. There was no way, who told him that he was not financially strong enough. It took 5 years to barely collect 3 kinds of spiritual medicines. This was his best effort. It was not that he did not want to collect more spiritual medicines, but he was really short of money. Forget it, I hope I can make more than 3 pills in the end. It's useless to think too much now. Wei Hong secretly suppressed the idea in his heart. In fact, he knew that his situation was much better than many casual cultivators, especially that he had accumulated tens of thousands of spiritual stones in just 5 years, and also found someone to refine the foundation building pill together. If he was lucky, he might really get a foundation building pill, or even build a foundation. This was already a life that many casual cultivators longed for but could not yet, so his mentality began to calm down a little. The result was still unknown, so he didn't have to think too much. Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan saw that the spiritual medicines they took out were ranked first and second respectively, and they couldn't help but smile. Especially Wang Xianzi, he took out 5 kinds of spiritual medicines. Once he succeeded in refining the foundation building pill this time, he would definitely occupy a foundation building pill, so Wang Xianzi was in a very good mood at the moment. I'll trouble you with everything. With a mentality of winning, Wang Xianzi politely arched his hands to Qin Hua. Qin Hua waved his hand and said, "No need to do that, I naturally understand, let me take a look at these spiritual medicines first." After that, Qin Hua opened the 12 jade boxes one by one for inspection. He did this to confirm that the spiritual medicines were correct and to test the quality of the spiritual medicines. As long as the spiritual medicines were fine, he would have the confidence to refine the foundation building pill. After checking once, Qin Hua nodded and said, Let's go to the alchemy furnace, I'll put these spiritual medicines away first." He waved his hand and put away all the 12 jade boxes. Then he walked deep into the alchemy room, and Wei Hong and the other 2 naturally hurried to follow. Soon, a huge alchemy furnace appeared in front of Wei Hong and the other 2. Chapter 584, Mountains, Rivers, Birds and Beasts Furnace. Alchemy Room. In the depths of this alchemy room, there is a huge alchemy furnace that is completely black. This alchemy furnace is more than 7 feet high, with 2 ears and 3 feet. Mountains, rivers, birds and beasts are carved on the outside of the furnace wall, as well as some mysterious patterns. There is a basin-sized feeding port in the center of the furnace body, which can also be used to observe the temperature. Below this alchemy furnace is an underground fire port, which is now sealed and has not been opened. Moreover, this underground fire port is designed to be concave. The entire underground fire port is about 3 feet lower than the ground of the alchemy room. There are 4 downward stone steps around the underground fire port, each with 3 layers, and you can go down to the central underground fire port from 4 directions. In this way, when the alchemy furnace is placed above the underground fire port, it appears to be shorter than Wei Hong and others. A ground fire control console is set up 1 foot away from the alchemy room. Next to the ground fire control console, there is also a white J table that is more than 3 feet long. Qin Hua walked to the ground fire control console and stopped, then turned to Wei Hong and the other 2 and said, "3 Taoist friends, I am going to start refining the elixir. You 3 can watch from here, but you need to stay a little further away and don't make any noise to avoid disturbing me. Of course, if you 3 Taoist friends don't want to watch, you can leave on your own and come back half a day later." After saying that, Qin Hua didn't care what Wei Hong and the other 2 chose. He reached out to touch the storage bag, took out the 12 jade boxes again, and placed them one by one on the jade table next to him. Upon hearing this, Wei Hong and the other 2 looked at each other subconsciously, and then chose to stay and watch without any intention of leaving. Hey, what a joke, it's about the foundation building elixir. Who would feel at ease if they didn't watch the elixir refining site? Wei Hong sneered in his heart. He would not do such a stupid thing. Even if Qin Hua didn't mention it, he had to ask to watch the elixir refining on the spot. If he was not on the scene, many things would be out of his control. The first problem is the use of spiritual medicine. If he is not on the scene to watch, if Qin Hua uses less spiritual medicine, or deliberately keeps several of them, and then declares to them that the alchemy has failed, even if he suspects, he has no evidence, and can only swallow this loss. The second is the number of pills in the end. If the alchemy is really successful this time, but he is not on the scene to watch, then even if there are 5 pills, they will be directly divided by Wang Xianzi and others, and then they will tell him that only 2 pills have been made. In this way, he will have no place to cry. So no matter what, Wei Hong must be on the scene to watch Qin Hua make pills. Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan naturally have the same idea. They will not be stupid. So the 3 of them tacitly ordered to retreat a distance, and then stand apart. Qin Hua, who stepped on the ground fire control console, had expected this and did not show any surprise at all. At this moment, his face was solemn, and he had already put all his mind into alchemy. He had no time to pay attention to the movements of Wei Hong and others, as long as they did not make any noise to affect him. Qin Hua stood in front of the underground fire control console. As usual, he closed his eyes and went through the refining sequence and various key precautions in his mind. After a moment, he opened his eyes again. Then, Qin Hua gently slapped the control console with one palm. Click! The cover at the underground fire mouth immediately retracted to both sides, revealing the underground fire mouth completely. A small flame directly jumped up from the underground fire mouth and swayed gently in the air. Qin Hua's face was full of seriousness. A stream of spiritual power hit the control console, and then controlled the underground fire, causing the underground fire to rise instantly. The rising orange-red underground fire directly wrapped most of the alchemy furnace and began to calcine at high temperature. At this time, Qin Hua did not make any other movements, but continued to calcine the alchemy furnace. After a full incense stick of time, Qin Hua controlled the underground fire to reduce it a little. At this time, the interior of the alchemy furnace had already been burned slightly red. Even though Wei Hong and the other 2 were 2 or 3 feet away, they could still feel the scorching heat coming towards them, and the temperature in the alchemy room also increased a lot. Fortunately, they were not ordinary people, and they could easily resist the high temperature by slightly circulating their spiritual power. After warming the furnace, Qin Hua finally took action. He sent out a spiritual power to control the earth fire to reduce it a little, and then opened the jade box placed in the first place with his left hand, and threw a purple crystal flower in it directly into the alchemy furnace. As soon as the purple crystal flower was thrown into the furnace, Qin Hua controlled the earth fire to rise violently, and at the same time, he used his spiritual power to control the purple crystal flower in the air of the alchemy furnace to prevent it from falling, and the fire began to burn fiercely. There was a fierce earth fire outside the alchemy furnace, and at the same time, a lotus-shaped orange-red flame appeared in the alchemy furnace. The lotus-shaped flame was only the size of a bowl, and it wrapped the purple crystal flower in it and burned slowly. As the flames continued to burn, the surface of the amethyst flower began to slowly ooze out drops of purple liquid. As the purple liquid slowly oozes out, the amethyst flower also began to slowly burn into ashes. After an incense stick, only a small ball of purple liquid was left in the alchemy furnace, slowly rotating. Qin Hua reduced the ground fire, and then waved his hand to take out a ball of purple liquid. He put the ball of purple liquid back into the jade box that contained the amethyst flower, covered the jade box and temporarily put it aside. Then, he took out a white 3-leaf spiritual grass from the second jade box. This white 3-leaf spiritual grass was white all over, about 5 inches long, with strange blue light spots appearing on the trunk, and there were several mysterious patterns on the leaves, which looked quite extraordinary. Qin Hua directly threw the white 3-leaf spiritual grass out of the alchemy furnace, and then increased the firepower again, causing the lotus-shaped flame to appear in the alchemy furnace again, and wrapped the white 3-leaf spiritual grass in it as before. Under the high temperature, the white 3-leaf spiritual grass began to slowly ooze out dense light blue liquid. Qin Hua pinched his hands together, constantly changing the temperature and technique. After the light blue liquid oozed out, it was directly vaporized by the high temperature, and not a drop could be left. Obviously, the light blue liquid was the impurity this time. After a while, When the white three-leaf spiritual grass no longer oozed light blue liquid, its trunk and leaves were slowly calcined into white powder by the high temperature, and then taken out by Qinhua and put back into the jade box. Wei Hong and the other two stayed not far behind Qinhua, staring at the alchemy furnace without blinking, and did not dare to make any noise, for fear of affecting Qinhua's alchemy. Chapter 585, Dividing the Pill and Condensing the Pill. Wei Hong and the other two were all staring at Qinhua's entire alchemy process, not daring to relax at all. Especially Wei Hong, who didn't even blink, was extremely focused. He was not afraid that Qinhua would do something tricky, but wanted to learn Qinhua's techniques and absorb Qinhua's experience in refining foundation-building pills. Because he also knew how to make pills, although his experience in alchemy was relatively lacking compared to drawing talismans in array formations, he was not a novice in alchemy, so he could still gain a lot of experience by watching Qinhua making pills. Qinhua was completely devoted to alchemy at this time, and he didn't care about anything outside. He threw the 12 spiritual medicines into the alchemy furnace one by one, burned and purified them, used fierce fire to force out the impurities in the spiritual medicines and burned all the impurities in trash, and the rest were all the essence of the spiritual medicines. Each kind of spiritual medicine essence was isolated and placed separately to ensure that there would be no problem of confusion in the medicinal properties. After more than 2 hours, Qinhua finally purified all the 12 spiritual medicines. This was only the first step in refining the foundation-building pill. With Qinhua's skills, there would naturally be no problems. If he could make mistakes in such a simple step as purification, he would not be worthy of being a second-level middle-grade alchemist. After the purification was completed, Qinhua's face relaxed slightly. However, he did not stop. He first controlled the earth fire to become a slow fire mode, then waved his hand, took out the purple liquid that was first purified, and carefully put it back into the alchemy furnace. In the alchemy furnace, the lotus-shaped orange-red flame immediately wrapped up the purple liquid. At this time, the flame temperature was not very fierce, and it began to burn slowly under Qinhua's control. At the same time, Qinhua's spiritual power also entered the alchemy furnace and carefully felt every change in the furnace. As the slow fire burned slowly, the ball of purple liquid became smaller again, because the last trace of impurities was calcined out, and the purple liquid at this time looked extremely pure. Qinhua waved his hand expressionlessly, and put another yellow liquid into the alchemy furnace and directly merged it with the purple liquid. The two liquids of different colors merged with each other, but there was no abnormality. Instead, they merged together very well, causing the liquid to expand and become a mixture of yellow and purple. Qinhua pinched his hands and kept controlling the temperature, sometimes raising it, sometimes lowering it, so that the lotus-shaped flame in the furnace always wrapped around the liquid, and the flame rose and fell, constantly calcining it. As time passed, under the constant burning of the alchemy fire, the yellow and purple liquid began to slowly turn brown, and the volume was reduced again. Then Qinhua repeated the steps just now, putting the purified spiritual medicine essences one by one into the alchemy furnace and constantly merging with the liquid in the furnace, and then constantly burning. Qinhua's spiritual power did not stop for a moment, and he was carefully sensing every subtle change in the alchemy furnace. His hands were also constantly pinching the fingers to accurately control the temperature of the lotus-shaped flame. Wei Hong watched Qinhua very attentively, and wrote down every step and every technique of his alchemy, ready to verify each other when he made the alchemy in the future, so as to improve his alchemy level. Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan, who were full of expectation at the beginning, became slightly nervous and a little anxious. However, they did not dare to make the slightest sound, fearing that their movements would affect Qinhua. If they really affected Qinhua and caused the alchemy to fail, they would probably even want to die. Qinhua did not know the reactions and thoughts of the three people behind him. As time went by, his face began to slowly become slightly pale, and he did not know whether it was caused by the continuous consumption of spiritual power. At this time, the liquid wrapped in the lotus-shaped flame in the alchemy furnace was increasing in size because of the addition of various spiritual medicine essences step by step, but as time went by, it gradually became smaller under the continuous burning of the flame, and now it has become the size of a fist. The color of the liquid had also changed before. It was a mixture of yellow and purple, then brown, and then changed between green, blue, red and black, until it slowly turned white. And with the continuous burning of the alchemy fire and the thorough fusion of the 12 spiritual medicines, the white liquid began to show signs of solidification, as if it was turning into a solid. After seeing the signs of solidification of the liquid, Qin Hua frowned slightly, but still did not dare to be careless. His face became more solemn, and the speed of his hands pinching the seals became faster and faster. Purification, fusion, and now the division and solidification of the pill. Such a good opportunity to observe is not often available. Seeing Qin Hua's actions, Wei Hong smiled secretly in his heart. Wang Xianxi and Zhang Yuan did not dare to blink, and stared at the alchemy furnace. At this time, Qin Hua stretched out his hand and pointed a spiritual power into the alchemy furnace, then quickly pinched his hands. As the magic formula changed and under the control of Hua's spiritual power, the fist-sized liquid trembled slightly, and suddenly split into 5 small balls of liquid about the size of a longan. When the 5 small balls of white liquid appeared, the lotus-shaped flame in the furnace instantly rose, fiercely calcining the 5 balls of white liquid wrapped in it, while Qin Hua carefully observed the changes. Under the fierce calcination of the fire, the 5 balls of white liquid all began to solidify rapidly, and in less than an instant of time, they all condensed into white solids the size of a longan, but these things did not look like a pill, and their surface was a little bumpy and not smooth. However, Qin Hua did not care at all, and a touch of joy appeared in his eyes. Seeing the 5 pills initially appear in the alchemy furnace, Wei Hong and the other 2 were also very surprised. If these 5 pills can be formed, then they don't need to worry about the distribution problem at all. Qin Hua then began to increase the input of spiritual power. Under the nourishment of spiritual power and the continuous burning of the earth fire, the surface of the 5 newly formed pills began to slowly become smooth, and only then did they look like a real pill. Wei Hong and the other 2 did not dare to breathe at this time, and their eyes were fixed on the alchemy furnace. At this moment, as the surface of the pills slowly became smooth, a faint medicinal fragrance gradually emanated from the furnace, which instantly refreshed people. But at this moment, in the expectant eyes of Wei Hong and the other 2, 3 newly formed pills actually began to shake violently, forming a sharp contrast with the other 2 pills. Chapter 586, The Foundation Building Pill is completed. Qin Hua's face changed drastically. A layer of fine beads of sweat oozed out of his forehead quietly, and his face turned a little pale. Qin Hua immediately increased his spiritual power input, trying to stabilize the 3 shaking pills. At the same time, he quickly pinched his hands and kept changing his techniques. When Wei Hong and the other 2 behind saw this scene, their faces changed drastically. Their expressions suddenly became extremely nervous, and their eyes revealed anxiety and panic. But they still didn't dare to make any sound, and could only control themselves tightly. Just as Qin Hua's hands were pinching his hands more and more anxiously, the 3 shaking pills suddenly made a hissing sound, and they all turned into a ball of black ash and fell to the bottom of the alchemy furnace. Qin Hua frowned, but he didn't care about the 3 vaporized pills. He put all his mind on the only 2 remaining pills, and didn't dare to relax at all. But Wei Hong and the other 3 who stayed behind reacted differently at this time. Wang Xianxi and Zhang Yuan saw that there were still 2 pills that had not been wasted, and they immediately breathed a sigh of relief. They relaxed and looked relieved. However, Wei Hong's face began to look ugly. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot, and his fists were clenched tightly together, as if he could not accept this result. Even though the pills had not really come out yet, Wei Hong knew that there were only 2 pills left in the alchemy furnace that had not been wasted, and at most 2 pills could be produced. According to their contribution ranking, he basically had no chance to refine the foundation building pills this time. Wang Xianxi and Zhang Yuan also knew this very well, so while they were relieved, they looked at Wei Hong with a little sympathy and comfort, but they did not express anything else. Wei Hong said nothing, just stared at the alchemy furnace. Qin Hua did not know the mood changes of the 3 people behind him. At this time, the alchemy had reached the last and most critical moment, but his speed of pinching the formula slowed down, but his spiritual power was still input. As time went by, the medicinal fragrance from the alchemy furnace became stronger and stronger. The only 2 remaining pills were spinning in the flames, and a faint white light was blooming. Qin Hua changed to slow fire to continue calcining. After half an hour, his nerves were tense. His hands suddenly changed their spells. The lotus-shaped flame in the alchemy furnace expanded and contracted, and the medicinal fragrance from the 2 pills instantly became extremely strong. At this time, Qin Hua sent out a spiritual power and directly knocked the furnace cover out. At this moment, The two pills in the alchemy furnace seemed to have spirituality and broke through the air directly from the furnace mouth. But Qin Huo was prepared. He turned his spiritual power into a giant hand, and just when the two pills flew out of the furnace mouth, he directly grabbed the two pills in his hand. Then he quickly took out a palm-sized vermilion gourd, and the giant spiritual power hand suddenly retracted and put the two pills into the vermilion gourd. Qin Huo immediately put the cork in, and only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. After collecting his spiritual power, Qin Huo slowly exhaled a long breath, then turned to look at Wang Xianzi and the other two, and smiled faintly. "Three Taoist friends, I am glad to have fulfilled your mission. Haha, Senior Qin is indeed very skilled, and he succeeded in one try. Senior is indeed a second-level middle-grade alchemist, and he got something out of his first move." Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan immediately stepped forward with smiles on their faces, and praised Qin Huo. Only Wei Hong had an ugly expression, standing there without saying a word, frowning, and a hint of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. Qin Huo saw the reactions of the three people, and he immediately stopped smiling, looked at Wei Hong with an apologetic face and said, "Friend Wei, my craftsmanship is not good enough, and I can only make 2 pills this time. I am really sorry." Because Qin Huo also knew that if there were only 2 foundation-building pills, then Wei Hong, who ranked 3rd, was destined to miss the chance to make a foundation-building pill, which also meant that Wei Hong's efforts in the past 5 years would all be in vain. Such a result was naturally not a good thing for Wei Hong, and Qin Huo could only express his apology. Wei Hong's mouth twitched, and he forced a smile. "Senior, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with you. I can only blame my bad luck for not getting the foundation-building pill." At this time, Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan also reacted. Wang Xianzi turned to look at Wei Hong and said with an embarrassed look, "Dao Wei, only 2 pills were made this time, which was really unexpected, but according to the agreement, Wang can only say sorry to you." Zhang Yuan also comforted him at this time. "Dao Wei, we can understand your feelings. After all, you have worked hard for 5 years and invested a lot of spirit stones. No one wants to fail. But only 2 pills were made this time, and we can't give up the foundation-building pill. I hope that Dao Wei can understand." The two said well, but their attitude was also very firm. The foundation-building pill was what they dreamed of, so how could they give it to Wei Hong? Wei Hong certainly understood this, but this result was hard for him to accept, so he just looked ugly and said nothing, appearing unusually silent. Qin Huo could only sigh slightly when watching from the side, but he couldn't say much. Investing tens of thousands of spirit stones but getting nothing in return is hard for anyone to accept. Wang Xianzi rolled his eyes and said to Wei Hong, "Dao Wei, how do you think about this? According to the agreement, these 2 foundation-building pills can only be shared by Dao Zhang and me. Since Dao Wei has nothing in return, you don't have to pay for the cost of asking Senior Qin to help. We will bear it together. In addition, Dao Zhang and I will each compensate Dao Wei with 3,000 spirit stones. What do you think?" Wang Xianzi could understand Wei Hong's feelings very well, so he proposed to give Wei Hong some compensation. After listening to this, Zhang Yuan hesitated for a moment, and immediately agreed, "No problem, just do as Dao Wang said. I wonder what Dao Wei thinks. Anyway, the foundation-building pill has been refined now. According to the agreement between them, those who didn't get the foundation-building pill should indeed get some compensation. What's more, tens of thousands of spirit stones have been spent before. Now that they can get the foundation-building pill by spending another 3,000 spirit stones, Zhang Yuan will naturally not refuse." Facing the expectant eyes of Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan, Wei Hong's expression eased a little at this time, and he nodded and said, "Okay, Wei is unlucky, there is nothing to say, just follow what Wang Dao said." At this point, it was useless to say anything. What's more, the 3 of them had already agreed, and it was useless even if he was unwilling and could not accept it. In this case, it would be better to accept the compensation from Wang Xianzi and Zhang Yuan. At least he could recover part of the loss, which was also a little consolation. Wang Xianzi was overjoyed when he heard this, and immediately said, "Haha, good, then it's settled." With this remark, the matter was completely resolved. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587, the opposite of what was expected. That night, after Wei Hong returned to the stone house, he sat down at the table. At this time, he looked gloomy and unwilling, but helpless. Alice, 3 people worked together to refine the elixir, but only 2 pills were made. When Wei Hong thought of this result, he still felt very depressed, and couldn't help but sighed. Is it my bad luck or the opportunity that hasn't come yet? 5 years of hard work have all gone to waste. What a thing. The more Wei Hong thought about it, the more depressed he became. Until now, he still couldn't accept the result that he didn't get a share of the foundation building pill. He spent 5 years accumulating spirit stones and collecting spiritual medicines, just to get a foundation building pill, but in the end, it didn't go as he wished. 5 years of hard work failed in one day, and now he has become someone else's wedding dress. Just because he took out the least spiritual medicine, he didn't get a share of the foundation building pill. This result made Wei Hong very helpless. Although he had imagined it before he started refining the elixir and had been mentally prepared, when this result really happened to him, Wei Hong still found it difficult to accept. The foundation building pill means the opportunity to achieve enlightenment. Without the foundation building pill, he cannot build a solid foundation for the Tao, and he cannot continue to move forward on the path of immortality. It is even very likely that he will stay in this realm and never break through. Therefore, if he fails to obtain the foundation building pill, Wei Hong will lose a great opportunity to build a foundation. Even if he obtains the foundation building pill later, he may lag behind others on the path of immortality because of one step slower. It is very difficult to catch up without a great opportunity. But now that this matter has become a fact, it is useless for him to be unwilling. Oh, forget it, just think that I am unlucky. Fortunately, I got back thousands of spirit stones as compensation, so it is not all in vain. Wei Hong shook his head helplessly. At this time, he could only comfort himself in this way. He is not a person who gets stuck in a dead end. If this road is not feasible, he will find a way to get through another road. It's just that the result of the alchemy is too depressing, so Wei Hong is unwilling to accept it. Fortunately, he also adjusted his mentality immediately and tried to drive these negative emotions out of his mind. Wei Hong frowned at this time, thinking secretly, since I can't make the elixir, I have to spend another 5 years to collect spiritual medicines. This is not what I want. I can accept 1 5 years, but 2 5 years is too long. This is absolutely not possible. What's more, there is a possibility that similar situations will occur next time I make the elixir. No one can guarantee this, so there is no need to consider making the elixir for the time being. He knew very well that he could never consider the path of making the elixir again. Moreover, Wei Hong also refused to spend another 5 years to collect spiritual medicines. His thoughts turned rapidly at this moment, and he began to think carefully about other ways. According to the 5 methods introduced by Senior Yuan, the first 3 are absolutely not worth considering. Now that the elixir is no longer feasible, it seems that the only way left is the auction. Wei Hong thought carefully and found that the auction was the only way for him to get the foundation building elixir. But the premise of getting the foundation building elixir is that he must have enough spiritual stones. Except for a few items that can be exchanged for precious resources at the auction, spiritual stones are generally used as currency for payment. As long as there are enough spirit stones, any item can be bought. On the contrary, if there are no spirit stones, even if the foundation building pill is placed in front of Wei Hong, he has no chance to take it away. At most, he can only take a look at it. Therefore, if you want to try your luck at the auction, you must have enough spirit stones. Well, since the way of alchemy is not feasible now, let's try it at the auction and see if there is any chance. Wei Hong secretly made up his mind to try his luck at the auction. Of course, he also knew that the possibility was a little small, but he was unwilling to give up without a try, so he decided to go to the auction to have a look. Thinking of this, he smiled bitterly and said, "Damn it, I have to save money again. I don't know how many spirit stones I need this time. 5 years of hard work have been in vain." In the end, only 6,000 spirit stones were recovered. Although it is better than nothing, it also makes Wei Hong short of money at this time. If you want to try your luck at the auction, you must accumulate some more spirit stones. Therefore, He must devote himself to hard work again. Fortunately, Wei Hong's mentality had become calm at this time, and he had no resistance or dissatisfaction. He was just thinking carefully about the feasibility of this matter, and what he should do if he still failed in the future. After thinking carefully for a long time, Wei Hong began to meditate and practice today with a worried heart. The next day, Wei Hong had selectively forgotten everything that happened yesterday, and no longer thought about it. Instead, he went to the Wei Hong pavilion, again to continue his work and business of repairing the array disc. Only in this way can he continue to accumulate spirit stones. Wei Hong now has a clear plan and cognition for every step he takes, and will never do those meaningless things. When he came to the Wei Hong pavilion, Yuan Qingyan immediately asked with some concern, "Friend Wei, how is the alchemy going? Can I get a foundation building pill?" Qin Hua was recommended to Wei Hong by Yuan Qingyan, so he was naturally more concerned about this matter. However, Wei Hong smiled bitterly and shook his head, saying, "Only 2 pills were produced. I was unlucky and failed to get one of them." He told Yuan Qingyan about what happened yesterday in detail, and also expressed his gratitude to Yuan Qingyan. After all, he and Yuan Qingyan were not related, but Yuan Qingyan helped him a lot, so Wei Hong was very grateful and respected Yuan Qingyan. Yuan Qingyan's eyes flashed with regret when he heard this, and then he immediately smiled and comforted him, "It's okay. With your skills, it's no problem to accumulate spirit stones and try again. It's nothing more than spending a few more years. It's also a good thing to let your own cultivation settle down." Yuan Qingyan didn't expect Wei Hong to not get a foundation building pill, but this matter has become a fact and can't be changed, so he can only comfort him slightly. Wei Hong smiled and said, "Thank you for your enlightenment, Senior Yuan. I understand that it is difficult to get a foundation building pill. I won't be discouraged and will find another way." "Haha, good, this is what a cultivator of my generation should do." Yuan Qingyan laughed and praised. Wei Hong chatted with him for a while, asked him a few questions, and then went to the backyard to collect a batch of damaged array plates, and then left the array pavilion. This time he did not return to the stone house directly, but went to several other array shops to collect array plates again. From today on, Wei Hong will resume the boring life of the previous 5 years. He will continue to work hard to accumulate spirit stones, and it is naturally not a problem for him to work harder. I will try my luck at the auction in 2 years and see if I can bid for a foundation building pill. Chapter 588, 10-year event. 2 years later. Time passed in the blink of an eye. In these 2 years, Kangshan Immortal City seemed to be extremely peaceful. Nothing happened that was worth the attention and talk of the majority of cultivators. The lives of many cultivators had not changed at all. But starting from a month ago, Kangshan Immortal City became more and more lively. More and more independent cultivators gathered here, and at the same time, disciples from major sects and cultivators from major forces also poured into Kangshan Immortal City. And as time went by, the number of these crowded cultivators continued to increase. Until today, Kangshan Immortal City has long been overcrowded. Everywhere you look, there are waves of cultivators, and countless independent cultivators are scattered all over every corner of Kangshan Immortal City, almost occupying all the places that can be occupied. The major restaurants and inns in the Immortal City were completely full half a month ago, and there was no room for a guest room. At the same time, because a large number of foreign cultivators gathered here, Kangshan Immortal City also became extremely lively and prosperous, especially the stall area was overcrowded every day. Of course, when there are too many people, it is easy to cause trouble. Even if there is a deterrent name of Kangshan's Henren, many casual cultivators still don't care after being in power, and fight privately in Kangshan Xiancheng, or fight in public. However, those who dare to do so are suppressed by the members of the Kangshan Guard without exception. They are either killed or escorted to Kangshan Xianayu. In short, there is absolutely no good end, which completely shocked the majority of cultivators in the Xiancheng. The reason for this phenomenon is that 3 days later is the start time of the large-scale auction held in Kangshan Xiancheng every 10 years. Kangshan Xiancheng, as an existence that cannot be governed by major sects, has always been independent of major sects. Therefore, the auction of Kangshan Xiancheng has always been a grand event worthy of attention in the world of cultivation. Because at the auction of Kangshan Xiancheng, any kind of rare materials and resources may appear, which are good things that many cultivators usually want to find but can't find, So as the time for the auction of Kangshan Xiancheng is approaching, more and more cultivators begin to gather here. Wei Hong learned through many inquiries that Kangshan Xiancheng actually holds several auctions every year, but the scale of these auctions is not very large, and it is not worth the attention of those cultivators above the Jinden stage. However, Kangshan Xiancheng holds a super large auction every 10 years. This auction is much more important than the small auctions held at ordinary times. Not only is the scale huge, but the number and quality of the auction items are also not comparable to those of small auctions, so every time it attracts many high-level cultivators to participate. Wei Hong is also waiting for this grand event that happens once every 10 years. Haha, I've been waiting for 2 years, and I can't miss this grand event. Wei Hong tossed a white jade plate in his hand with a faint smile on his face. In the past 2 years, he has also not left Kangshan Xiancheng. He spent every day practicing and repairing the array plate. His life was extremely monotonous and boring. After 2 years of accumulation, Wei Hong once again saved about 30,000 spirit stones. And the auction event that happens once every 10 years happened to be coming, so he immediately decided to participate in this auction. However, not everyone can participate in this auction. The auction organizer has strict control over the number of participating monks and the number of people. After asking around, he soon figured out some of the details of this auction. First of all, according to past practice, this auction will still be divided into 3 levels. From the first to the third, they are foundation building level, golden elixir level and nascent soul level. Among them, the foundation building level is for monks at the foundation building stage and below to participate. The golden elixir level is for monks at the golden elixir stage to participate in the auction, and the nascent soul level can only be participated by real people at the nascent soul stage. Of course, if real people at the nascent soul stage are willing, they can participate in any auction of the level, and Jinden stage monks can also participate in the auction of the foundation building level. In other words, high-level monks can participate in the auction of the lower level, but low-level monks are not eligible to participate in the auction of the higher level. The admission fee is different for each level. The admission fee for the first level is 100 lingxi, the admission fee for the second level is 1000 lingxi, and the admission fee for the third level is as high as 10,000 lingxi, which is a huge difference. Putting aside other things, the organizer of this auction collected no less than 10 million spirit stones for the entrance fee alone. Wei Hong also used Yuan Qingyin's connections and took great pains to get an entrance jade plate. If he hadn't acted early, it would have been useless even if he had used connections. Those entrance jade plates had been sold out more than half a month ago. The cultivators who failed to grab a spot were all beating their chests and stamping their feet. What's more, at this time, an ordinary entrance jade plate had been priced at 500 spirit stones. Wei Hong was not tempted by this at all. He had to participate in the auction. Otherwise, he would not even be qualified to auction the foundation building pill. Would the efforts of the past 2 years be in vain? Alice, I don't know if 30,000 spirit stones are enough. I hope the price of the foundation building pill won't be too outrageous. Wei Hong sighed secretly. In fact, he didn't have much confidence in the result of this auction. At the same time, he also held another glimmer of hope in his heart, that is, to see if there are some secret techniques suitable for him at the auction, especially those secret techniques with huge sequelae and no one is interested in them. Maybe he can solve the problems of those secret techniques with the vitality points. Of course, this is just his personal idea. As for whether it can be realized or whether such items will appear at the auction, everything is still unknown. I don't know what kind of rare treasures will appear at the auction of the Jinden and Yuanying levels. Unfortunately, I can't even get a foundation building pill now. Wei Hong's face was full of longing, but when he thought of his current situation, he immediately smiled bitterly. Since yesterday, he temporarily stopped repairing the array plate and never left the stone house, waiting for the auction to start. At this time, there were all kinds of people in Kangshan Xiancheng, and Wei Hong didn't want to get involved in any trouble, so staying at home was the best choice to avoid all troubles. I hope I can successfully bid for the foundation building pill this time. A trace of worry flashed across Wei Hong's eyes, and then he murmured to himself, if it doesn't work again, I really have no choice. Thinking of this, Wei Hong subconsciously touched the storage bag, because in that storage bag, there was also a side door foundation building method. But Wei Hong's heart has always rejected this foundation building method. After all, once he chooses this foundation building method, it is very likely that he will cut off his path to immortality. However, when there is really no choice, this foundation building method will become Wei Hong's only choice. Chapter 589 Mustard Seed Space. 3 days later. Today is the day when the auction officially begins. Therefore, since the dawn of the morning, a large number of cultivators in Kangshan Immortal City have already set off, either gathering together to exchange experiences or heading towards the southern part of the city. The venue of this auction is in the southern part of the city, and the auction venue has been under martial law since 3 days ago. Wei Hong also got up early in the morning, and walked out of the stone house directly after getting ready. After he walked out of the stone house, he immediately joined the crowd and walked slowly towards the southern part of the city. Half an hour later, ling. A crisp bell that seemed to resound in people's hearts suddenly rang throughout the entire Kangshan Immortal City. This bell sound instantly spread throughout the city, causing all the cultivators in Kangshan Immortal City who heard this bell to be suddenly shocked. The Hunun bell has rung, and the auction is about to begin. Someone in the crowd shouted, and countless cultivators immediately moved at the sound. Wei Hong was also refreshed and hurriedly accelerated towards the auction venue. The sound of the bell just now came from a top-level magic weapon Hunun bell collected by Kangshan Immortal City. This Hunun bell was not used by Kangshan's Henren, but was hung on a high tower in the inner city of Kangshan. It was usually used to transmit messages and warnings. At this time, ringing the Hunun bell was to inform all the monks in the city that the auction was about to begin. In front of a 6-story attic in the southern part of the city, it was crowded with people. Countless monks gathered here, and all kinds of complicated exchanges and noises were heard. At the same time, the scene was flashing with the light of various magic tools and magic treasures. Wei Hong walked in it and suddenly felt his own insignificance. Haha, I came here to know that key training monks are not as good as dogs is not a joke, but a real reality. Wei Hong sighed with a wry smile in his heart. At this moment, tens of thousands of cultivators gathered in the square in front of the 6-story attic. Among them, there were countless peak key training cultivators like him, and there were also a large number of foundation building cultivators. Wei Hong looked very ordinary and inconspicuous. Many casual cultivators seemed to be participating in such a life for the first time. They all showed extremely excited expressions on their faces, and their eyes were looking around, looking very curious about everything. Except for a casual glance at the beginning, Wei Hong never looked around to avoid causing any trouble, and then waited in place. At this time, in front of the 6-story attic, 3 long queues had already begun to form, and they had obviously started to line up to enter. Wei Hong was also behind one of the queues. Today was the first day of the auction, and it was also a special session for cultivators at the foundation building stage and below. All cultivators who paid the entrance fee could enter, which was also considered to be warming up for the auction later. The first 3 days were for foundation building cultivators, the 4th and 5th days were for giant cultivators, and the last day was for Yuanying cultivators. The auction would end after 6 days. Wei Hong naturally had to attend the auction on the first day, so as not to miss the foundation building pills. After waiting for about an incense stick of time, it was his turn to enter. After showing the white jade plate in his hand to the 2 foundation building cultivators who were responsible for checking the jade plates for entry, Wei Hong was qualified to enter, and then walked straight into the attic. But what shocked Wei Hong was that the 6-story attic did not look big from the outside. At that time, Wei Hong was a little confused, wondering how this attic could accommodate so many cultivators. When he came in, he found that he had walked at least a mile to the passage to the attic, and it took him a cup of tea to reach the end of the passage. At the end of the passage was an extremely spacious hall, which was thousands of feet wide at a glance. At this time, this vast hall was already filled with various monks. Rows of seats were densely placed in a circular arrangement, one row next to another. In the middle of the hall, a 5-foot-sized circular area was left. In the center of the circular area, there was a square platform, about 3 feet high, and on all 4 sides of the platform were inclined upward stairs so that people could easily walk to the platform. On the platform was a huge white jade table. On the left side of the jade table was a small golden hammer, and on the right side was a small purple wooden frame, on which hung a small brass bell, about the size of a fist. In front of the jade table, there was a huge white jade crystal wall that was 2 feet high and 1 foot wide. However, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that above the hall on the first floor, there were actually 2 floors of stone houses suspended. These suspended stone houses were also circular and surrounded in the air, but the stone houses on the second floor were slightly smaller than those on the third floor, and there were more of them than those on the third floor. Wei Hong was already stunned by this, his mouth wide open. He stood there in a daze. Obviously he had never seen such a spectacular scene, and this was just an auction venue. Mustard seed space. Wei Hong whispered softly. It was obvious that the technology of mustard seed space was used here, otherwise the 6-story attic seen outside would not be that big, and could not accommodate so many monks, so only mustard seed space could do this. And the introduction of mustard seed space was also read by Wei Hong from an ancient book, and this was also his first time to see it. At this time, he happened to see a blue stream of light passing by, and then stopped in front of a stone house on the second floor, revealing a middle-aged figure in a blue robe. The man waved his sleeves, opened the stone house and walked straight in. Golden Core Stage Monk. Wei Hong was secretly surprised. Obviously, those independent stone houses suspended in the air should be prepared for the Golden Core Stage and Yuanying Stage monks, so as to show the nobility and uniqueness of high-level monks. Fortunately, although he was shocked, Wei Hong did not forget the real purpose of this trip. He found an empty seat and sat down. After sitting down, he looked around, then looked at the stone houses in the air, and then retracted his gaze. He began to close his eyes and rest in his seat, waiting for the auction to officially begin. At this time, the huge auction venue was already full of people, mainly because there were too many monks gathered here, more than 10,000 people. Even if those monks did not deliberately speak loudly, the countless voices mixed together still seemed very noisy. Wei Hong turned a deaf ear and kept his eyes closed. After about half an hour, the auction venue was completely filled with various monks. Then there was a creaking sound, and the door of the passage was directly closed. Wei Hong heard the movement and slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 590 Knowing Nothing. Whoosh! At this time, a stream of red light swept down from the air, and in the blink of an eye, it flew directly to the high platform in the middle. When the figure completely stopped, Wei Hong could see the appearance of the person coming. It was a gorgeous woman wearing a red palace dress. The woman looked about 30 years old, with a white complexion, black hair tied into a bun, and a pair of peach blossom eyes that seemed to attract everyone's attention. She was charming in every frown and smile. She was completely a beautiful woman who could fully exude her charm and advantages. As expected, when the woman appeared on the high platform, she instantly attracted the attention of all the monks present, and everyone cast their eyes on the high platform. At this time, the beautiful woman came to the J table, picked up the golden hammer directly, and then gently knocked on the brass bell on the wooden stand next to it. Ling. A bell that sounded not loud and slightly clear suddenly resounded throughout the auction venue. And this bell seemed to be able to shake the soul. After the bell rang, the entire auction venue instantly became quiet. All the cultivators fell silent, not making any more noise. When everyone was quiet, the beautiful woman in a red palace skirt on the high platform immediately smiled and said, I am Yu Shuang, meeting all the Taoist friends and seniors. As she spoke, the beautiful woman bowed to everyone around her, and then continued, I am not talented, but I am the auctioneer of today's auction. If I have done anything inconsiderate or offended anyone, I hope that all Taoist friends and seniors will forgive me. At the same time, I hope that all Taoist friends and seniors can support my work. This woman named Yu Shuang is not only beautiful, but also has excellent eloquence. She seems to be very good at mobilizing other people's emotions. Just a few words made many cultivators cheer. Moreover, this person is a genuine mid-stage foundation-building cultivator, so she is naturally qualified to host such an auction. In addition, this woman seemed to be quite famous. Wei Hong observed that many cultivators seemed to have finally seen the real person after hearing the name Yu Shuang. However, Wei Hong knew nothing about this and was too lazy to ask more. Ling. Auctioneer Yu Shuang rang the bell again, and the auction venue is quiet again. At this time, Yu Shuang's smile disappeared and he said in a serious tone, Okay, no more idle talk. Fellow Taoists and seniors, I now declare that the auction officially begins. As Yu Shuang announced the official start of the auction, all the cultivators present were refreshed. At the same time, a maid holding a tray slowly walked up to the high platform. After the maid placed the tray on the J table, she retreated directly to the corner, and the auctioneer Yu Shuang gently lifted the silk cloth covering the tray. She gently picked up the things on the tray, held it in her hands and said to the cultivators present, Look, Fellow Daoists, this is a second-grade medium-quality flying boat, made by the weapon refining master Menkayan. This flying boat is extremely fast, and it is also engraved with a second-grade medium-quality defense array, as well as concealment restrictions. The attic and rooms on the flying boat are all complete, so it is a rare treasure. The starting price of this flying boat is 20,000 spirit stones, and each increase in price must not be less than 1,000 spirit stones. Fellow Daoists only need to enter the number on the entry jade plate in their hands to make their bids, and the seniors above can make their bids on the special jade plate in the stone house, so that it corresponds to the stone house where each senior is. Now, the auction officially begins. As the auctioneer Yu Shuang finished speaking, many cultivators at the scene began to bid. You know, this is a flying boat made by the master of refining equipment Menkayan. Whether it is used to travel, escape, or chase the enemy, it is a rare treasure and is very useful. Therefore, many monks who are not short of money will naturally take action immediately after seeing such an auction item, wanting to take it down. The first item is a flying boat. This auction is quite generous. Wei Hong aside slightly. Obviously, the organizer of the auction also hopes to mobilize the atmosphere with the first item, so he put such a flying boat in the first place for auction. The purpose is self-evident. As expected, the atmosphere at the scene immediately became heated. 21,000 spirit stones. 23,000. 25,000. 28,000. Bids were heard one after another, and at the same time, the latest bid was displayed on the huge white jade crystal wall in front of the auctioneer Yu Shuang. The number on it was the highest bid, but the number on the white jade crystal wall changed very quickly, and now it has reached a height of 31,000. Wei Hong folded his arms and just watched coldly without any action. Such a rare flying boat was something he naturally wanted, but it was not something he had to get, and with his financial strength, he could not get it at all, so he did not join in the fun. Soon, when the price of the flying boat reached 40,000 spirit stones, the numbers on the white jade crystal wall changed much more slowly. Obviously, this high price had already screened out most of the cultivators. Very good, fellow Taoist number 170 bids 42,000 spirit stones. Is there any fellow Taoist who can offer a higher price? Yu Shuang's clear voice with a hint of charm seemed not loud, but it could ring in the ears of every cultivator. She continued to recommend, this flying boat is a rare second-level treasure. It is the best choice whether it is used for traveling or escaping. Fellow Taoists, don't miss it. Okay, fellow Taoist number 1286 bids 43,000 spirit stones. Very good, is there anyone else bidding? 43,000 spirit stones is the first time. Fellow Taoists, don't miss such a treasure. Master Menkayan doesn't bid often. Okay, 43,000 spirit stones is the second time. If no one bids again, this flying boat will belong to fellow Taoist number 1286 today. 43,000 spirit stones is the third time. Okay, deal. Let us congratulate this fellow Taoist. Please go to the backstage to make the transaction immediately. Yu Shuang reminded 3 times in a row, and when she found that no one bid, she decisively used the golden hammer to strike the brass bell. With the sound of the bell, it meant that the first lot was officially auctioned successfully. The maid who had been staying in the corner immediately stepped forward to put away the flying boat, and then returned to the backstage. At this time, another maid who was also holding a tray slowly walked up from the bottom of the high platform. Chapter 591, Thunder Black Eagle, Demon Bird Egg. The atmosphere in the auction hall was high. The successful auction of the first lot aroused the enthusiasm of most of the cultivators. At this time, Yu Shuang picked up the second lot and showed it to the cultivators present while introducing it. Dear Taoist friends and seniors, what I hold in my hand is a demon beast egg of the second-level low-grade demon bird Thunder Black Eagle. Dear Taoist friends, you should all know that although the Thunder Black Eagle is a second-level low-grade demon bird, it has the attribute of thunder and is as fast as lightning. Even among the second-level demon birds, it is a very fast demon beast. Moreover, when it grows up, the feathers of the Thunder Black Eagle are as hard as iron. It is definitely a rare spiritual pet and helper. Even if it is in some disparate places, it can escape with its flying ability. It can also be used as a flying spiritual pet at ordinary times. It is definitely not to be missed. Okay, that's all for the introduction. This Thunder Black Eagle Demon Beast egg will be auctioned now. The starting price is 10,000 spirit stones, and each bid must not be less than 500 spirit stones. Ling. After a bell rang, the second lot was officially auctioned. At this time, the auctioneer Yu Shuang did not need to mobilize the atmosphere. After seeing the demon egg of the Thunder Profound Eagle, most of the cultivators at the scene were excited and joined the auction in great joy. 11,000 spirit stones. 12,000. 13,000. 18,000. The numbers displayed on the white jade crystal wall changed almost every breath. Obviously, compared with a first auction item like the flying boat, the Thunder Profound Eagle is more popular and welcomed by the majority of cultivators, so there are more people who want to bid for the Thunder Profound Eagle. It is just because the Thunder Profound Eagle will be at least the initial stage of foundation building after adulthood, and it is also a thunder attribute demon bird known for its speed. Its combat power is almost not inferior to that of an ordinary cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building. It is conceivable how much help it can provide to its owner. Moreover, the Thunder Profound Eagle is much faster than the flying boat, and it can also be used as a flying spirit pet at ordinary times. Its role is no less than that of the flying boat, not to mention that the flying boat cannot help the cultivators fight. Therefore, this Thunder Eagle monster egg immediately attracted a large number of cultivators to scramble for it. It was just because this was a monster egg, not an adult Thunder Eagle, and it would take a lot of resources and time to cultivate it, so the starting price was so low. However, it did not affect the enthusiasm of the majority of cultivators to scramble for it, and bids were constantly refreshed. Okay, fellow Taoist number 343 bid 31,000 spirit stones. Is there anyone who can bid higher? Yu Shuang had a faint charming smile on her face, and she would loudly report the numbers displayed on the white jade crystal wall from time to time. When the price of this Thunder Eagle monster egg reached more than 30,000 spirit stones, the speed of bidding slowed down. 33,000 spirit stones. 34,000. 35,000. Okay, fellow Taoist number 781 bid 35,000 spirit stones. Is there anyone who can bid higher? Yu Shuang smiled sweetly and asked from time to time. After a long while, when the numbers on the white jade crystal wall did not change, she smiled and said, okay, 35,000 spirit stones for the first time. 35,000 spirit stones for the second time. If no one offers a higher price, then this Thunder Eagle monster egg will belong to the 781st Taoist friend. Okay, 35,000 spirit stones for the third time. Congratulations to the 781st Taoist friend. Please go to the backstage to make the transaction. Ling. As Yu Shuang knocked down the brass bell, it meant that the second lot was officially auctioned off. Wei Hong did not make any bids throughout the whole process. When he heard the bell, he sighed in his heart. To be honest, he was still very interested in the Thunder Eagle monster egg. After all, it would be of great use to cultivate it to adulthood and would also be a good helper. But he was short of money. His entire net worth was only more than 30,000 spirit stones. If he bought this monster egg, he would not be able to buy the foundation building pill anymore. So he absolutely did not dare to make a move before the foundation building pill was auctioned. Soon, under the auspices of Yu Shuang, one item after another was auctioned, making the auction atmosphere on site reach an extremely heated level. Magical instruments, elixirs, spiritual herbs, monster eggs, talismans, rare minerals, spiritual woods. All kinds of materials, as well as various magical instruments were displayed one by one at the auction. Wei Hong was dazzled, and at the same time, his heart was extremely excited. However, he could only look at these treasures, and he did not dare to compete at all. Compared with the foundation building pill, no matter how precious these external objects were, how could they compare to the strength of one's own cultivation? As long as Wei Hong could be promoted to the foundation building stage, he could slowly earn those things with his strength in the future, but if he could not break through, then even if he had more, he would be like a child carrying gold in the market, and people would only think about him. Wei Hong was not stupid, but thought very clearly. So at this moment, he participated in the auction with the mentality of gaining knowledge and broadening his horizons. He was extremely curious about every item, but he never made an offer, which seemed very special. Of course, there are many cultivators like him. After all, the wealth of many key training cultivators is still very limited. Generally, they will focus on one or two goals. Few people can bid for several items in a row. Moreover, not all the items at the auction are worth tens of thousands. The first few items were just used by the organizers to mobilize the atmosphere. Later, more items appeared, such as first-level top-quality and first-level top-quality items, and the auction prices ranged from hundreds to thousands. These lower-priced items are more popular with key training cultivators. Many cultivators bid for the treasures they want to buy, and then the auction atmosphere on the scene is driven to a higher level. There are several items that almost made Wei Hong want to bid, but when he thought that the foundation building pill had not yet appeared, he forced himself to calm down and did not make a rash move. Of course, these first and second level items were not taken seriously by the giant and cultivators who stayed in the suspended stone house on the second floor. They did not make any bids throughout the whole process. As the auction items were sold one by one, the auction progress was already halfway through. However, the foundation establishment stage that Wei Hong had been waiting for a long time still hadn't appeared, which made him a little anxious. Will he not show up in the next 2 days? Then wouldn't I have come here in vain today? Wei Hong frowned secretly, feeling a little helpless. But at this moment, a maid slowly walked up to the platform with a tray. Wei Hong saw that there seemed to be a jade bottle on the tray, and the outline of the jade bottle could be seen even through the red cloth. In an instant, he was immediately refreshed. Chapter 592 Top-Grade Foundation Building Pill. Under Wei Hong's expectant gaze, the maid gently placed the tray on the jade table. Yu Shuang stepped forward and gently lifted the red cloth covering it, revealing a white jade bottle. Wei Hong stared at Yu Shuang, hoping to hear the words he wanted to hear from her. As he expected, Yu Shuang gently picked up the white jade bottle, and then introduced in a delicate voice, "Dear Taoist friends and seniors, this jade bottle contains a foundation building pill, and it is also the only foundation building pill in today's auction. As for the foundation building pill, there should be no need for me to introduce it in detail, right? I guarantee that this foundation building pill has just been produced not long ago, and the medicinal effect is very well preserved. The grade has reached the top grade, and the foundation building effect is 30% stronger than that of ordinary foundation building pills. I hope the Taoist friends who are interested will not miss it. Okay, the auction will start now. The starting price is 30,000 spirit stones, and each bid increase must not be less than 1,000 spirit stones." When the auction was halfway through, the foundation building pill that Wei Hong had been waiting for a long time finally appeared. Moreover, Yu Shuang did not need to introduce the efficacy of the foundation building pill, so she just said a few words and announced the start of the auction. In fact, when this foundation building pill appeared, the breathing of many key training cultivators at the scene became rapid, and their eyes were full of greed and desire, and they wanted to grab the white jade plate immediately. As long as they got this foundation building pill, they would have the possibility of advancing to the foundation building stage. It was precisely because of this that many key training cultivators, like Wei Hong, came for the foundation building pill. Wei Hong's eyes lit up at this time, and all his attention was focused on the foundation building pill. 35,000 spirit stones. He did not hesitate and directly quoted the highest price he could afford. However, the next moment, his price was completely overwhelmed. 37,000 spiritual stones. 38,000. 41,000. 45,000. In a short while, the price of the foundation building pill was bid up to more than 50,000 spiritual stones. In just a moment, Wei Hong's eyes, which had suddenly lit up, dimmed instantly. He sat there in a daze, looking lost and helpless. I knew that a mere 30,000 spiritual stones could not possibly buy a foundation building pill. It's just a matter of luck, but it's not realistic at all. Wei Hong sighed in his heart, and at the same time felt extremely depressed. Although he had been mentally prepared, when the facts really happened in front of him, Wei Hong still found it difficult to accept. After all, the foundation building pill was an important thing related to whether he could build a foundation. The current rising price had already announced that Wei Hong would get nothing at the auction, and this road was completely blocked. In fact, he also understood that even if he really had a richer fortune, even if he really successfully bid for the foundation building pill, he might not be able to take it out of the auction. It was because Wei Hong observed that even the giant and stage cultivators in the second floor suspended stone house had begun to bid. It was unknown whether they were preparing for their descendants or had other ideas. In short, even if the giant and stage cultivators had already bid, even if he successfully bid for the foundation building pill, he would be targeted. At that time, let alone the foundation building pill. It was still unclear whether he could save his life. Therefore, Wei Hong decisively gave up the unrealistic idea in his mind. Although there was still a trace of loss and helplessness in his heart, he quickly adjusted his mentality. At this time, the price of the foundation building pill had been driven up to more than 70,000 spirit stones. 75,000 spirit stones. The senior in the stone house number 3 bid 75,000 spirit stones. Is there anyone who can offer a higher price? Yu Shuang's face was slightly excited, and the voice of the quotation became much louder. Obviously, the price of this foundation building pill has exceeded the price originally expected by the organizer. However, even though there were giant stage cultivators bidding, some key training stage cultivators with deep backgrounds still gritted their teeth and continued to bid. 78,000 spiritual stones. Okay, fellow Taoist number 132 bid 78,000 spiritual stones. Fellow Taoists, there is only one foundation establishment pill in today's auction. If you miss this opportunity, you can only wait until tomorrow. Yu Shuang looked excited, and did not forget to continue to mobilize the emotions and bidding enthusiasm of the cultivators present. 80,000 spiritual stones. The number on the white jade crystal wall changed again. Yu Shuang took a look and smiled again. Okay, the senior in stone house number 3 bid 80,000 spiritual stones. If no one bids a higher price, this foundation establishment pill will belong to the senior in stone house number 3. When the giant stage cultivator in stone house number 3 bid again, the entire auction venue fell into silence. No matter how much Yu Shuang spoke, no one dared to bid higher. 80,000 spirit stones for the second time. Is there anyone who can offer a higher price? Okay, 80,000 spirit stones for the third time. Let us congratulate the seniors in stone house number 3. Ling. With the sound of a bell, the only foundation building pill of the day was completely auctioned off. Like Wei Hong, many cultivators showed disappointment and helplessness on their faces. But the fact is that they are powerless to change it. 80,000 spirit stones is a huge number that a cultivator in the key training stage may not be able to save even if he does not eat or drink for 10 years. Even Wei Hong can only save about 10,000 spirit stones a year at most. If he wants to buy that foundation building pill, he must save for 8 years. Therefore, it is very unrealistic for these key training cultivators to bid for the foundation building pill at the auction. Many cultivators have already understood this fact and no longer have any expectations in their hearts. However, the progress of the auction will not stagnate because of the ideas of any cultivator. After the foundation building pill, another auction item was immediately started. However, Wei Hong no longer had much expectation and interest in the next auction items. He frowned and fell into deep thought. Now that the auction method has been blocked again, it means that he needs to think of a new way to have the possibility of obtaining the foundation building pill. But after thinking about it, Wei Hong can no longer think of any method. Whether it is joining the Kangshan Guard or joining the Kangshan Immortal Prison, or signing a contract with his Yuxin family, these are things that Wei Hong absolutely cannot accept. These three methods no longer need to be considered. But other than this, he seems to have no other way. Damn it, is it so difficult to get a foundation building pill in this Kangshan Immortal City? Do I have to go to Senior Kinhua to make pills again? Wei Hong was extremely helpless in his heart. After thinking about it, he couldn't think of a solution. Of course, he can continue to collect spiritual herbs and then go to Kinhua to make pills. But the result may not be what he wants, so Wei Hong temporarily suppressed this idea. Wait, let's wait and see. Chapter 593. The method of building foundation and upgrading. The auction was still going on. At this time, a large number of treasures and materials had been auctioned off, and the auction was gradually coming to an end. It seemed that today's auction would end soon. Wei Hong had gained nothing, and was extremely disappointed. He had waited for a long time and seen many treasures, but none of them could help him break through to the foundation building stage. It could be said that his original purpose of participating in the auction was completely impossible to achieve. Well, let's come back and have a look in the next 2 days. If it doesn't work, I'll continue to collect spiritual herbs and make pills. Wei Hong sighed, and he began to grit his teeth in his heart. Even if he collected spiritual herbs and gambled on making pills again, he would never join the Kangshan Guard or the Kangshan Immortal Prison. As for signing a contract with those immortal cultivation families, it was even more impossible. He would never be controlled by others. Fortunately, he was still young and had plenty of time. Even if he spent a few more years collecting spiritual herbs, it would not have much impact on him. So Wei Hong's mentality began to calm down slowly, and he no longer thought about these problems. However, at this time, Yu Shuang suddenly picked up a pale yellow jade slip in her hand, and then introduced loudly, "Dear Taoist friends, and all seniors, the jade slip in my hand is a method of foundation building and upgrading handed down from ancient times. The method of foundation building and upgrading handed down from ancient times." Before Yu Shuang finished her introduction, Wei Hong's attention was immediately attracted, especially the word foundation building in the sentence, which instantly made Wei Hong feel refreshed. Yu Shuang's words of introduction then sounded, "Maybe many Taoist friends don't know what the method of foundation building and upgrading is. The so-called method of foundation building and upgrading is actually a method that can improve the quality of one's foundation building. And this method of foundation building and upgrading handed down from ancient times has been identified by our appraisers. This method is indeed true, so I hope the Taoist friends who have ideas will not miss this opportunity." Yu Shuang's eyes flickered slightly at this time, but no one noticed it on the high platform. However, as soon as she finished her voice, she set off an uproar in the entire auction venue. "What? A method of upgrading the foundation from ancient times? Impossible. The foundation rank can also be upgraded? How is this possible? My God, how come I have never heard of such a domineering method? Such a rare and precious method would actually appear at this auction. Is it true? Taoist Yu, please don't lie." In the auction venue, almost all the cultivators were moved by this method of upgrading the foundation. They all exclaimed, or their eyes shot out, or their faces were full of disbelief, and some even had a face full of doubt, as if they thought this was a gimmick brought out by the organizer. You know, after each foundation building cultivator successfully builds his foundation rank has been completely fixed, which means that the foundation of these foundation building cultivators cannot be higher, which is almost recognized by everyone. After all, the grade of the foundation of Taoism is mainly related to the talent of the cultivator, and secondly, it is related to the cultivation method and the natural treasures taken when building the foundation. Apart from this, there is no other factor that can affect the foundation of a cultivator, and the method that can improve the foundation of Taoism is even more unheard of. But now such a method of upgrading the foundation of Taoism has popped up at the auction, which is really hard not to be ecstatic. If this method is true, then the cultivator who obtains this method can upgrade his own foundation of Taoism to the upper third grade, which is absolutely an irresistible temptation for a cultivator, because the upper third grade of Taoism also represents the possibility of condensing the golden elixir. For a while, the cultivators in the entire auction venue seemed to be talking about it like crazy. More people stared at the foundation building and upgrading method in Yu Shuang's hand with endless desire and greed in their eyes. Wei Hong was also excited at this time, and his heart was even more excited. He didn't expect that just when he was disappointed, such a method that could improve the grade of Taoism would suddenly appear at the auction. A method to upgrade the foundation? In this case, as long as I can advance to the foundation building stage, I can practice this method to upgrade the foundation, and then improve my own foundation grade, and even the first grade foundation may be reached. In this case, don't I need to pursue the foundation building pill anymore? Wei Hong's eyes suddenly lit up, and the more he thought about it, the more excited he became. It was because he had a side door foundation building method from Dingzhou, and with this foundation building method he could be promoted to the foundation building stage. At the beginning, Wei Hong didn't take the side door foundation building method he got from Dingzhou seriously. Because such a foundation building method that can be called an evil way, even if it succeeds in building a foundation, can only build a 9th grade foundation, and the consequences are extremely serious. After building a foundation, the future is basically ruined, and there is no possibility of any improvement in cultivation. Perhaps you can only stay in the early stage of foundation building for the rest of your life. So if Wei Hong has a better foundation building method, he will never consider that side door foundation building method. This is also the reason why he has been searching for the foundation building pill, because the foundation building cultivators who rely on the foundation building pill to advance have no future troubles in cultivation. Even if they only build a lower third grade foundation, theoretically, they can go further on the road to immortality, unlike the side door foundation building method, which will ruin their future once they practice it. Even in such a disappointing situation just now, Wei Hong did not take the side door foundation building method into consideration. But when the foundation building upgrade method in Yu Shuang's hand appeared, the situation immediately changed. Wei Hong thought that maybe he could use the foundation building upgrade method to completely solve the future troubles of the side door foundation building method, and then improve his own foundation grade, which is simply a great thing that kills two birds with one stone. Maybe it's feasible. Wei Hong's eyes flashed with an inexplicable light, and his heart became hot. But he also knew that such a rare method would definitely be snatched by countless people, and the chance that he could take a picture of it might not be high. However, at this moment, a giant in-stage cultivator in the suspended stone house on the second floor suddenly asked, "The method of foundation building and upgrading handed down from ancient times? Why have I never heard of it, girl you? Is there any harm in this method of foundation building and upgrading? Or what kind of conditions are needed to complete the upgrade of the foundation?" It must be said that a giant master is a giant master. In just a few words, he got to the point, and at the same time, he thought of many problems that many low-level cultivators had never thought of. As soon as these words came out, the scene suddenly became quiet. After all the cultivators quieted down, they couldn't help but look at each other, and for a moment they seemed to realize that there was something wrong with this method. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594. Who'd do such a stupid thing? The scene was completely silent. At this moment, all the cultivators reacted and woke up from their madness and excitement. Yes, such a precious method, regardless of whether you have heard of it or not, if it can really improve the level of Taoism, then its conditions must be extremely harsh, or there must be serious consequences, otherwise how could it appear at an auction of our level? Almost all the cultivators couldn't help but have such a similar thought in their minds. For a moment, the majority of the cultivators slowly calmed down, and the desire and greed in their eyes dissipated a lot, just waiting for Yu Shuang to give an answer. Yu Shuang's face changed slightly, but she smiled calmly and said, "Haha, senior, you are really sharp-eyed and you got to the point right away. Actually, this is exactly what I wanted to say just now, but you interrupted me. This method of building a foundation and upgrading does not require any precious materials or elixirs. You only need to do one thing, that is, destroy your original foundation, and then use this method to practice again, so that you can improve the grade of your foundation when you build a foundation again." After saying this, Yu Shuang couldn't help but show a slightly embarrassed smile on her face. As expected, when Yu Shuang's voice just fell, the entire auction venue was instantly in an uproar. "What? I have to destroy my foundation? Haha, this is hilarious. Destroying the foundation and cultivating again, can this be considered as improving the grade of the foundation? What a joke, we worked so hard to complete the foundation, and you want me to destroy it and cultivate again? Even if the foundation is really improved by one level, what's the use? I might as well meditate and cultivate hard with that little time." Tisk, I was saying, how could such a precious method flow out of an auction of this level? It turns out to be a chicken rib. Countless cultivators at the scene cursed or were filled with righteous indignation, as if they felt that they were deceived by Yu Shuang, just because what Yu Shuang said was really unrealistic. You know, all cultivators who can build a foundation have spent a huge price or experienced a lot of hard cultivation, so they attach great importance to their own foundation and cultivation. But now if you want to practice that method of foundation building and upgrading, you must destroy your original foundation, and then you need to practice again and build the foundation again, so that you can upgrade the grade of the foundation. Isn't this nonsense? Let's not talk about the possible dangers of this method. Just saying that destroying one's own foundation is not something that ordinary people can do. Even no cultivator can bear the consequences of destroying their own foundation. This is something that absolutely no one is willing to try. Those foundation building cultivators have finally broken through to the foundation building stage. How can they destroy the foundation on which they rely for survival and development? Even if someone is really determined to do this, but if you practice again and build the foundation again, where can you find the huge resources for foundation building? If you can't find a foundation building pill, won't you destroy yourself? Who would do such a stupid thing? Therefore, after hearing the cultivation conditions of the method of foundation building and upgrading, the majority of cultivators at the scene completely extinguished their original thoughts of buying it, and some even ridiculed it again and again. But when Wei Hong heard this condition, his heartbeat became rapid. Destroy the foundation and rebuild it? Then it can improve the quality of the foundation? In this way, this foundation building and upgrading method is naturally compatible with the foundation building method in my hand. When such a thought appeared in Wei Hong's mind, he himself felt extremely incredible. He did not expect that this foundation building and upgrading method would be. He was originally worried that such a precious method would be snatched up, but now it seems that there is no need to worry at all. Haha, as the saying goes, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't expect that my foundation building opportunity would fall on this method, and I'm afraid that no cultivator would bid for this foundation building and upgrading method. Haha, the opportunity is really unstoppable. Wei Hong was overjoyed, and he had even thought about the key points carefully. Therefore, he immediately waited with full concentration for Yu Shuang to announce the start of the auction. Yu Shuang's face was a little ugly at this time, and she even smiled very reluctantly. She didn't expect to cause such a big reaction. It can be said that she is now in a difficult situation. But thinking of the task issued by the higher-ups, Yu Shuang could only sigh helplessly, and then a smile reappeared on her face, saying, "Okay, this ancient foundation building and upgrading method is now open for auction. The starting price is 5,000 spirit stones, and each bid increase must not be less than 500 spirit stones. Daoists who have ideas must not miss it." Ling. After a bell rang, it meant that everyone could start bidding. But the result that surprised Yu Shuang appeared. There was no number on the white jade crystal wall. This meant that no one bid at this time. This scene of no one bidding was the first time in this auction. Yu Shuang was also full of surprise. Even though she had some psychological preparation just now, she still felt a little incredible when facing this result. This was also a result she didn't expect at all. In a hurry, Yu Shuang immediately began to make amends and said, "Fellow Daoists, this method of building foundation and upgrading is passed down from ancient times and has been certified by our appraisers. It is absolutely true. Daoists who have the conditions may try it. If you can improve your own foundation to the upper third level, it will be much easier to advance to the golden core stage." Yu Shuang was afraid that this lot would be directly unsold, so she said all kinds of words to make up for it, hoping that some cultivators would bid for it to avoid it being unsold. But the cultivators present were not fools. Everyone knew that how could they waste 5,000 spirit stones to bid for a method that was completely useless? Therefore, no one bid even if Yu Shuang said it in a fancy way. Time passed slowly, and Yu Shuang's face became slightly pale. She obviously had never encountered such a situation before, and she seemed quite at a loss for a while. According to the regulations, if no one bids after half a cup of tea, then she must announce that this lot will enter the unsold state, and then auction the next lot. Fortunately, Yu Shuang had seen big events before. She took a deep breath and prepared herself mentally to announce that the item failed to be sold when the time came. But at this moment, a flash of light appeared on the white jade crystal wall, and a line of numbers immediately appeared, which was exactly 5,000. This sudden change made Yu Shuang's mood seem to be thrown directly from the bottom of the valley to the top of the mountain in an instant. She seemed excited and excited. She subconsciously blurted out and shouted, "Okay, fellow Taoist number 2356 bids 5,000 spirit stones." Chapter 595, Risk Your Life and Survive. Buzz. The silence was broken by a sudden bid. Many people were surprised and whispered, wondering which fool would waste 5,000 spirit stones to bid for such a method. However, Wei Hong, the bidder, looked calm at this time. But his fists were clenched tightly in secret, and it was obvious that he was not as calm as he appeared. Because Wei Hong was afraid that someone would do the same as him and wait until the auction time was about turned before suddenly bidding. After all, there were tens of thousands of cultivators present, and there were countless people who were very cunning or good at hiding. No one knew each other's thoughts, so he did not dare to relax at all until the last moment when the bell rang. Yu Shuang also became excited because someone suddenly offered a bid to save her. Her face became ruddy again, and then she loudly recommended, "Dear Taoist friends, this is a method of foundation building and upgrading that has been passed down from ancient times. It will be extremely difficult to find it again if you miss this auction. Are you really not going to consider it again? Maybe this is the opportunity that you Taoist friends have been pursuing. Don't hesitate." Yu Shuang opened her mouth again, hoping to attract more cultivators to make bids. But her action was like dancing for a blind man. and it had no effect at all. No matter what she said, this method of foundation building and upgrading was still unsold. Instead, Wei Hong couldn't help but curse in his heart, wishing to block Yu Shuang's mouth. If a cultivator really jumped out to bid for this method of foundation building and upgrading, then it would be a bit uncertain whether he could bid for it, so Wei Hong became more nervous and wished that Yu Shuang would ring the bell immediately. Fortunately, Yu Shuang knew that it was a rare thing for someone to bid, and she didn't dare to delay any longer. So after shouting for a while and finding no one responding, she immediately began to count down. Okay, 5,000 spirit stones for the first time. 5,000 spirit stones for the second time. Is there anyone who can bid higher? 5,000 spirit stones for the third time. Okay, congratulations to fellow Taoist number 2356 for winning this foundation building and upgrading method. Please go to the backstage to make the transaction. Ling. Yu Shuang counted down faster than any other item before the auction, and then simply rang the brass bell. With the ringing of the bell, it meant that Wei Hong finally succeeded in winning the foundation building and upgrading method. Wei Hong secretly rejoiced in his heart that fortunately no one competed with him. At the same time, he couldn't help but get excited in his heart, wishing to get the method in his hands immediately. Fortunately, his mind was still calm, and he knew that many people might be paying attention to the situation at the auction venue at this time, wanting to see which cultivator would bid for such a method, so Wei Hong did not leave immediately. After Yu Shuang auctioned 2 more treasures, he stood up and went to the backstage. His departure at this time did not attract anyone's attention, because the auction of the last few treasures of the auction today was about to begin. Wei Hong did not have the slightest intention of staying to watch, because no matter how precious those treasures were, they had nothing to do with him, and he was not qualified to covet them. In this case, it would be better to leave secretly while everyone's attention was attracted. He quickly walked through the passage to the backstage, and then explained his purpose to a maid and showed the auction jade plate, and then he was taken to a reception room. Hello, guest, this is the item you bid, please check it. In the reception room, an old man greeted Wei Hong as soon as he saw him come in. Then he placed a tray in front of Wei Hong, and the tray contained the light yellow jade slip. Wei Hong nodded lightly, first handed over 50 medium-grade spirit stones in a very polite manner, and then picked up the light yellow jade slip and put it on the center of his forehead, and began to examine it carefully. The old man smiled with satisfaction, checked it briefly and put the spiritual stone away. After a while, Wei Hong opened his eyes and said lightly, "Very good, so the money and goods are settled. Haha, as long as the customer is satisfied." The old man smiled kindly. Wei Hong nodded, said goodbye and turned to leave. Before leaving the 6th floor attic, he found an empty corner, changed his appearance and body shape, and then left. After realizing that no one was following him, Wei Hong walked around for a few times before returning to the stone house he rented. After sitting cross-legged on the bed in his bedroom, Wei Hong couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. It was not until this moment that he really relaxed. Before the auction, his mind went from nervousness to expectation, from expectation to disappointment, and finally to excitement. The whole process was ups and downs, without a moment of relaxation. At this time, he had already got what he wanted, so he naturally felt much more relaxed. Thinking of this, Wei Hong took out the pale yellow jade slip from his storage bag again. He put the jade slip between his eyebrows and began to read it carefully again. Previously, he simply verified the authenticity of this method at the auction venue, and did not conduct a detailed inspection. Now that he returned to his stone house, he naturally had to read it carefully word by word to avoid mistakes. This was the key to whether he could solve the hidden dangers of foundation building, and he could not afford to be careless. After more than half an hour, Wei Hong slowly opened his eyes. But at this time, his brows were tightly knitted, and he looked like he was lost in thought. Put yourself in a desperate situation and then survive? Hey, the person who created this method of foundation building and upgrading is indeed a very smart person. Even in ancient times, he should have been a big shot. Wei Hong suddenly chuckled, and his tightly knit brows slowly relaxed. After he carefully read the method, he found that this method was indeed extremely dangerous. Rather than saying that this is a method, it is better to say that it is a secret technique. There are no external conditions required to practice this method of foundation building and upgrading. You only need to reach the foundation building stage, and then practice it successfully according to the formula of the upgrading method. Then, Follow the steps guided by the upgrading method to destroy your own foundation, and then rebuild your foundation. You can upgrade your original foundation by 1 level. The reason why this method is extremely dangerous is that when you destroy your own foundation according to the guidance of this method, you may suffer unimaginable damage, thus completely becoming a cripple and having no ability to continue to repair. This alone is enough to keep most of the cultivators out, because no one is willing to risk becoming a cripple or being severely injured to practice a method whose effect is unknown. This is the real risk of death. Chapter 596 Unexpected. Wei Hong was silent. He already knew the danger of this foundation building and upgrading method in his hand, but his focus was not on this. The formula of this method is not that obscure and difficult to understand. I think it won't take long to comprehend it. This is a bit beyond my expectation. Wei Hong murmured softly with a little doubt. He originally thought that this ancient method might be extremely obscure and difficult to understand, but who knew that it was not the case. With his comprehension, he only needed more than half a month to comprehend it thoroughly, which also surprised him a little. As for the danger brought by this method when destroying the foundation, Wei Hong didn't take it to heart at all. Haha, dangerous? Seriously injured? Wei Hong shook his head and laughed, and said with a very happy face, perhaps for any other cultivator, it may become a useless person and can no longer continue to cultivate, but for me, this is the easiest thing to solve. Because as long as he has enough vitality points, he can infinitely repair his body and injuries. No matter how serious the injury is, it will be completely recovered in a short time without any future troubles. It was precisely because of this that Wei Hong would not hesitate to buy this foundation building method. After he simply comprehended it for the first time, the original worries in his heart had already dissipated for the most part. At this time, he took out the foundation building method he got from Ding Zhu and continued to comprehend it carefully. After a long time, Wei Hong slowly opened his eyes again. This time, his face became much more solemn. He held the jade slip in his hand and murmured softly, "This side door foundation building method is really weird. It does not require any natural treasures. It actually requires a large amount of monster blood, and a specific breakthrough formation must be arranged. It is really different from ordinary methods. No wonder it is called an evil foundation building method." The jade slip recorded that in order to use this foundation building method to build the foundation, a large amount of monster blood must be prepared, and a specific special formation must be arranged for breakthrough. The jade slip also recorded in detail the arrangement of the formation and the materials required. Such a foundation building method naturally surprised Wei Hong greatly. Only then did he understand why the side door foundation building method was also called the evil foundation building method by the immortal cultivation world. It seemed that it was indeed a bit evil and very strange. Fortunately, Wei Hong did not care about these issues. He only cared about whether this foundation building method could help him build his foundation. The method of upgrading the foundation? The method of building the foundation. Wei Hong murmured softly, and the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, "It seems that my idea seems to be possible to realize. These two methods are completely prepared for me. They can even solve each other's troubles and defects. It's simply a perfect match." Ha 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 in the stone house, Wei Hong's joyful and excited laughter lasted for a long time before slowly stopping. At this moment, Wei Hong was finally able to confirm that his previous idea at the auction was absolutely feasible, and his foundation building path had been settled. These two methods are clearly excellent methods that can be used together. Wei Hong only needs to use the foundation building method to break through to the foundation building stage first. At that time, it doesn't matter even if the grade of his foundation is low, because he can immediately practice the method of foundation building and upgrading, then destroy his own foundation and practice again, and then continue to use the foundation building method to complete the foundation. Repeating this cycle over and over again, repeating these two processes over and over again, he can solve the hidden dangers while constantly improving the grade of his own foundation. He only needs to break through again and again, and then destroy his own foundation again and continue to rebuild. Although this process is time-consuming and labor-intensive, the future is extremely bright, and the time and materials consumed are completely acceptable to Wei Hong, not to mention that he still has vitality points to repair the severe damage suffered when destroying his foundation, so that all injuries can be fully recovered. In this way, the risks and hidden dangers brought by these two methods were all found by Wei Hong. Wei Hong himself did not expect that he would get another solution without getting the foundation building pill. It can be said that he lost something in one place but gained something in another. He was not disappointed. Of course, Wei Hong was not 100% sure that practicing these two methods together could really achieve the effect he wanted. But he thought it was worth a try, and even if he failed, it would not have much impact on him. Once he succeeded, he would also get unimaginable huge benefits. Apart from other things, as long as he could improve his Dao foundation to the upper third grade, Wei Hong's future cultivation path would become much smoother, and even the probability of advancing to the golden core stage would be a few points higher than that of ordinary cultivators. After all, the Dao foundation after the foundation building represents the talent of each cultivator, which is basically the same as the spiritual root at the beginning. However, those who can change and improve the Dao foundation, like Wei Hong, may be 1 in 100,000. So Wei Hong thought about these very clearly and decided to give it a try. It's just a little risk, but what's it compared to the benefits gained from the difficulties? We cultivators should have the courage to make progress, so let's decide. After thinking carefully, Wei Hong made up his mind. However, this matter should not be rushed, and many preparations must be made in advance. So on the second day, Wei Hong began to frequent various shops. He did not go to the auction again, but took advantage of the spiritual stones in his hand to purchase all kinds of materials and supplies he needed. First of all, there were living supplies such as monster meat and spiritual rice, which he prepared for a full year. Secondly, there were monster blood needed for practicing the foundation building method and the materials needed for the formation. Fortunately, only monster blood was needed instead of monster blood essence, and the materials needed for the formation were just ordinary things, so Wei Hong directly purchased a large amount of monster blood, from the first grade upper grade monster blood to the second grade lower grade monster blood, which filled several large storage bags, and he also prepared several sets of formation materials. Because Wei Hong considered that he needed to repeat the process of building and destroying the foundation, all kinds of materials must be prepared in multiple copies. The last thing was the elixir for improving cultivation. In addition to keeping hundreds of spirit stones on hand for backup, he exchanged all the remaining spirit stones for long zidan, which was as many as dozens of bottles. It took Wei Hong 3 days to prepare all these things. Fortunately, Kangshan Xiancheng is one of the largest cities in the world of cultivation. There is no shortage of various materials and resources. As long as there are enough spirit stones, you can basically buy what you need. In this way, Wei Hong has made all the preparations in the early stage. He decided to leave the city in 3 days to find a place to practice. Chapter 597 Searching for the Spiritual Vein. 3 days later, Wei Hong was ready, and now he followed the crowd and slowly walked out of Kangshan Immortal City. He had changed his appearance before leaving the city. This time, he chose to go south again after leaving the city. As a branch of the Monster Mountain Range, Qianling Mountain Range has many small spiritual veins. Maybe I can choose one of them as my place of cultivation. Wei Hong was walking while thinking secretly in his heart. The reason why he chose to leave the city this time was because he didn't want to stay in Kangshan Immortal City to complete the foundation building. Generally speaking, when breaking through the foundation building, there will be strange phenomena in the world, but compared with the strange phenomena in the Jinden stage, the scale of the strange phenomena in the foundation building stage is much smaller. Maybe it will cause the spiritual energy of the world in an area to change, or it may be some strange phenomena. In short, this kind of strange phenomenon is not the same, and the range is not too large. But as long as Wei Hong lives in Kangshan Immortal City, once he breaks through to the foundation building stage, he will definitely attract the attention of the surrounding cultivators, and let people know that he has become a foundation building cultivator. If it was just a breakthrough, it really wouldn't be a big deal. In the huge Kangshan Immortal City, there are countless cultivators who break through to the foundation building stage every year. These cultivators who break through to the foundation building stage generally stay in their families or sects, or rent spiritual vein caves in the Immortal City to break through, so as to ensure their own safety and not be disturbed. But Wei Hong still has to practice the method of foundation building and upgrading. In this way, he must repeat the foundation building, which may cause the appearance of heaven and earth anomalies many times, and it will be impossible to cover it up. If the cultivators around him find out that Wei Hong can repeat the foundation building, they will be shocked and the possible consequences can be imagined. At that time, It will cause huge and endless troubles, which is not the result Wei Hong wants to see. He doesn't want to attract other people's attention at all, but staying in Kangshan Immortal City to build a foundation will definitely attract attention. If he stays in Kangshan Immortal City, this problem cannot be solved at all. Therefore, it is imperative to go out of the city to find a secret place for cultivation. Only by completing the breakthrough in a secret place of cultivation can one avoid being noticed by anyone or monsters, which will also be much safer. Therefore, Wei Hong wanted to go to Qianling Mountain Range to find a small spiritual vein to build a cave. Qianling Mountain Range is actually the mountain range he entered before to find spiritual herbs, and it is also one of the many branches of Monster Mountain Range. Monster Mountain Range is a famous super mountain range in the world of immortal cultivation. It not only stretches for more than 1 million miles and spans several regions, but also has many branches, which are full of various terrains and landforms, and are also full of many rare spiritual herbs and materials. If it were just like this, then this Monster Mountain Range would be thoroughly trampled by countless immortal cultivators, no matter how big it is. However, there are countless monsters living in the Monster Mountain Range, from the lowest level ordinary monsters to the descendants of ancient monsters, etc., which can be said to have everything, and the number and types are extremely huge. Therefore, even if a real person in the nascent soul stage enters it, it may not be able to guarantee his own safety. If he is unfortunate enough to encounter the descendants of ancient monsters in the depths of the Monster Mountain Range, it is still a matter of whether he can escape. Because of this reason, many cultivators in the world of immortal cultivation love and fear the Monster Mountain Range. There are often some lucky cultivators who find some precious spiritual herbs or minerals on the outskirts of the Monster Mountain Range, which makes a large number of cultivators enter and explore it at the risk of their lives. However, the consequence of doing so is that more and more cultivators are buried there, and even many Yuanying's Henren have died because of their greed for the inner elixir and materials of the monsters. Gradually, no one dares to ignore the reputation of the Monster Mountain Range. Cultivators below the Jinden stage also gradually dare not enter the Monster Mountain Range, and at most they only explore the outer area. As one of the branches, the Qianling Mountain Range is far less dangerous than the Monster Mountain Range. Wei Hong also studied it carefully for a long time before deciding to go to the Qianling Mountain Range. Moreover, he would not go deep into it, but only find a small spiritual vein in the outer area. I hope to find a secret and safe spiritual vein. Wei Hong secretly looked forward to it. Just like the last time he left the city, Wei Hong followed a familiar road all the way south. This time he did not encounter any monsters when crossing the plain, which made him slightly relieved. A few days later, Wei Hong stood at the edge of Qianling Mountains again. Let's get started, I hope this time it will go smoothly. Wei Hong looked up at the tall mountains, murmured and walked forward. At this moment, his desire to break through and become a foundation-building cultivator reached its peak. If he was a foundation-building cultivator, then no matter how rugged or difficult the mountains ahead were, he only needed to fly up with his sword. Not only was the speed extremely fast, but he was also not restricted by the terrain. It was really different from the current situation where he could only travel on foot. However, he came out of the city this time to break through the foundation-building period, so he quickly suppressed the idea in his mind. Wei Hong walked into the forest with a face full of vigilance and caution, fearing that he would be ambushed again like last time. Fortunately, nothing happened this time, and the forest was silent. Wei Hong recognized the direction, and after entering the mountains, he slowly walked towards the left. This time, he only planned to search for spiritual veins on the periphery of the mountain range, and was determined not to enter the interior of the mountain range. With his current strength, he could still handle wandering around the periphery of the mountain range, but if he entered the interior of the mountain range, it would be too dangerous. However, spiritual veins were not so easy to find, and Wei Hong was ready for a protracted war. At this moment, he used his full strength to perform the breath-retaining technique, and his breath was completely restrained. With a divine walking talisman attached to his feet, he walked in the mountains and forests at a fast pace. Moreover, he held a sword in his right hand and held several attack talismans in his left hand, so that he could respond immediately if an unexpected situation occurred. In the outer area of the Qianling Mountains, the terrain is generally dominated by mountains and forests. The roads in the forest are not difficult to walk, but there are often some rocks or low shrubs blocking the view, so Wei Hong had to grope forward carefully. Every time he passed an area, He would carefully feel the concentration of spiritual energy there to determine whether there was a spiritual vein around, and if so, where it would be. However, Wei Hong did not have the magic to sense the spiritual veins, nor did he have divine consciousness, so the search was still a bit troublesome, and he could only rely on himself to explore step by step. Fortunately, there were not many monsters outside the mountain range. Wei Hong searched for several days in a row without encountering any monsters. This made him relax a little after being disappointed, and his spirit was no longer so tense. Chapter 598, Coincidence. 7 days later. Wei Hong was exhausted and came to a valley. In the past 7 days, he searched a large area, but never found a spiritual vein. Instead, he encountered 2 first-level middle-grade blue-flowered snakes, which were easily killed by his 2 swords. After 7 days of searching, Wei Hong was also very tired. Especially since he had no harvest in the past 7 days, he was quite disappointed. Today, he happened to come to a valley, and it was a coincidence that he found this valley. Wei Hong was just planning to find a place to rest for a while, so he saw 2 clean boulders in front of him, and there were several square stones like stone piers under the boulders, so he walked over and prepared to sit under the boulders for a while. In the middle of the 2 boulders, there were weeds that were almost 1 person tall. It looked quite desolate, as if no one had been here for a long time. Wei Hong didn't think much about it, and sat down after finding that there was no danger. But not long after he sat down, he found that there seemed to be a passage behind the weeds beside him, and he could see something flickering behind the weeds. For a moment, Wei Hong immediately became alert. He immediately stood up slowly, and after being prepared, he used his flying sword to gently chop the weeds in front of him. Sure enough, a mountain road that seemed to have been abandoned for a long time and was overgrown with weeds appeared in front of him. This mountain road was covered with sparse gravel. If it weren't for Wei Hong's sharp eyes, it would be difficult to tell that this was a mountain road, and there were weeds blocking the way. Wei Hong hesitated for a moment, then waved his flying sword to chop all the weeds in front of him. After walking more than 10 feet along the mountain road under his feet, he seemed to have walked into a hidden valley. This is... Wei Hong frowned slightly, looking a little confused. He didn't expect that there was such a hidden valley hidden behind the 2 boulders. If he hadn't chosen to rest next to the boulders, he would definitely not have been able to find it. The valley in front of him was not big. He could see the end at a glance. The depth was only several dozen feet, and the widest part on both sides was only more than 10 feet. It was gourd-shaped, with a small mouth and a big belly. The further he went in, the wider it became. Moreover, the valley was also full of various weeds and low shrubs, which looked very desolate. On both sides of the valley were steep cliffs. There were no plants growing on the cliffs. It looked bare. If there were no cultivators above the foundation building stage, it would be impossible to climb up. However, on the top of the cliffs, there were dense trees, and the lush branches stretched out, directly blocking the valley below. However, when Wei Hong sensed the spiritual energy here, he exclaimed with surprise, "Hey, the spiritual energy here is more concentrated than outside. Could it be that there is a spiritual vein here?" The spiritual vein that he had been searching for many days but had not found was actually found here. This result surprised Wei Hong, and at the same time, he was very surprised. So he immediately walked slowly and carefully towards the inside of the valley, ready to explore it carefully. After all, it is not easy to find a spiritual vein, and he does not want to miss this opportunity. Moreover, he thinks that this valley seems to be very secretive. Whether it is a cultivator or a monster, it is generally difficult to find the location of the valley. There just happens to be a spiritual vein here, which just meets his requirements. Thinking of this, Wei Hong's mood suddenly became more excited. The deeper he went into the valley, the higher the concentration of spiritual energy he found. Yes, there must be a small spiritual vein here. Haha, God helps me. This is definitely an excellent place for cultivation. The more Wei Hong thought about it, the more excited he became. He basically decided to occupy this place. He walked all the way into the depths of the valley, but did not find any traces of monsters. This did not relax his mind, but made him more vigilant. Because there is a small spiritual vein here, it will definitely attract some monsters to occupy it. Sure enough, after walking to the bottom of the valley, Wei Hong found a dark cave entrance. The cave entrance was about 1 person tall and more than 5 feet wide. It was neither round nor square, and it seemed irregular. The cave entrance could not be seen at all, so it looked a little dark. In front of the cave entrance, there was a shallow sliding trace. Before he got close, Wei Hong smelled a disgusting fishy smell. Wei Hong's face changed slightly, and his steps stopped instantly. He restrained his breath, observed carefully, and made a judgment in his heart. It seems that there should be a snake demon entrenched in the cave, and it is not small in size. I just don't know what level of snake demon it is. Wei Hong frowned and thought secretly in his heart. Soon he made a plan and acted quickly. He took out a dozen formation flags from the storage bag, stretched out his hand and nailed the formation flags around the cave entrance. Then he took out another formation plate, muttered something in his mouth, and slowly injected his own spiritual power into the formation plate, making the formation plate slowly glow white. After a while, a layer of white light curtain began to rise where the more than 10 formation flags were connected to each other, and quickly spread and connected, directly forming a circular light curtain that completely covered the entire cave entrance. Then, under Wei Hong's control, the light curtain slowly disappeared again. He actually set up the heavenly wind cold array directly in front of the cave entrance. Obviously, facing the unknown snake monster inside the cave, Wei Hong did not dare to be careless at all, and directly took out a most powerful killing array. According to his idea, if the rank and strength of the snake monster in the cave are not high, then he can use the power of the array to kill it strongly, and at the same time cover up the movement of the fight. If there is a snake monster above the foundation building stage in the cave, then he can also use this heavenly wind cold array to delay him so that he can successfully escape, so setting up this array is definitely a safe move. After arranging the array, Wei Hong took out a few talismans and put them aside, holding the flying sword in his hand, and the whole person was ready. He found that during the arrangement of the array, the snake monster inside the cave did not react at all. He didn't know whether it was in a deep sleep or really didn't notice it, but it was always a good thing for it. So after Wei Hong was ready, he decisively threw a fireball talisman into the cave. Whoosh! Boom! A loud noise came from the cave, followed by a flash of fire. The next moment, a violent breath immediately awakened from the inside of the cave. Hiss! A sharp hissing sound suddenly sounded, as if it could pierce the eardrum. Then there was a hissing sound in the cave, as if a huge object was about to rush out of the cave. Chapter 599, Fierce Fighting, Cold Wind. Swish! A piercing sound came from the cave, and it kept approaching the cave entrance. Wei Hong's face was slightly condensed, and he immediately made a gesture with his hands. The next moment, a thick and sturdy python with a dark body and scales on its body rushed out of the cave. Just as the dark python rushed out of the cave entrance, under Wei Hong's control, the hidden white light curtain reappeared and directly stopped the python. Bang! The white light curtain was like a substance, and the dark python made a muffled sound when it hit it. Hiss! In pain, the giant python immediately let out a shocking scream. At the same time, its huge and ferocious triangular mouth immediately opened, spitting out a black snake tongue more than 3 feet long. Black-scaled python. Wei Hong frowned slightly and immediately recognized the origin of the giant python. This is a huge and poisonous black python. The snake skin on its body is like layers of scales, which is also the origin of the name of the black-scaled python. This kind of black-scaled python usually has the strength of the 9th level of key training when it grows up, just like the black-scaled python in front of Wei Hong. However, because Wei Hong had set up a formation in advance, the black-scaled python plunged into the formation without knowing it, and was naturally trapped in it, which made Wei Hong relieved a lot of worry. Fortunately, the formation was set up, otherwise, if this black-scaled python rushed out of the cave, it would be really difficult to kill it. Looking at the black-scaled python roaring in the formation, Wei Hong smiled coldly. At this time, the black-scaled python already knew that it was trapped in the formation, so in a rage, it raised its thick snake tail high, and then slapped it hard at the white light curtain in front of it. Bang! After a huge muffled sound, the white light curtain also rippled slightly. Evil beast, you are looking for death. Wei Hong's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He saw him pinching his hands, and then his spiritual power suddenly urged. At this time, hundreds of crescent wind blades suddenly appeared in the air in the formation, and slashed towards the black-scaled python fiercely, with a sound of breaking through the air. At the same time, there were bursts of icy and biting cold wind in the formation. The cold wind was like a knife, blowing directly on the black-scaled python's body, making a ding-ding-ding sound. Hiss. Seeing that it could not dodge at all, the black-scaled python immediately raised its head and roared. It suddenly coiled its body, revealing only the huge and ferocious python head. Huh? The black-scaled python's head suddenly opened and blew a breath towards the wind blades in front of it. A green poisonous mist instantly sprayed out of the black-scaled python's big mouth. After those wind blades and cold wind came into contact with the green poisonous mist, a hissing sound immediately sounded. The green poisonous mist was obviously extremely toxic. Even though the wind blade chopped on the black-scaled python's body, it only cut out a series of white marks, and failed to directly break the defense, which surprised Wei Hong outside the formation. The defense of this snakeskin is so strong. Wei Hong was surprised and suspicious. But he was not afraid at all. Since the black-scaled python had been trapped in the formation, unless it was a demon beast in the foundation building stage, it would be impossible for it to escape alive. Thinking of this, a cold light flashed in Wei Hong's eyes. Swish! Just under the body of the black-scaled python, 5 extremely sharp earth thorns broke out of the ground and pierced the body of the black-scaled python fiercely, instantly piercing 5 blood holes as big as bowls. Under the earth thorn technique performed by Wei Hong, the defense was finally broken this time. But this also completely angered the black-scaled python. In the pain, it didn't care about the blood flowing, and suddenly raised its head and screamed, then opened its ferocious mouth and bit down fiercely at the white light curtain in front of it. Buzz! The 4 sharp fangs in the mouth of the black-scaled python were obviously extremely sharp. With its huge strength, it actually bit the white light curtain and made it vibrate continuously, as if it would break in the next second. Wei Hong's face changed slightly, and at this time, the spell changed. Chi. Several golden sword lights appeared in the air and slashed down fiercely at the black-scaled python. At the same time, 3 giant ice blades suddenly condensed in the formation, and the gusts of cold wind continued to merge into the ice blades, which doubled the size of the 3 giant ice blades again. Cut! Wei Hong uttered a word coldly. In an instant, the giant ice blade slashed down fiercely at the black-scaled python. Chi. The 3 giant ice blades slashed down with cold light, and with a chi sound, they directly cut a black-scaled python into several pieces. Hiss! The black-scaled python only had time to let out a shrill hiss before falling to the ground in an instant. But the python body that was broken into several pieces was still twisting on the ground, as if it had not completely lost its vitality. Wei Hong's face changed slightly, and he couldn't help but exclaimed, "What a strong vitality! It is worthy of being a python monster." After half a cup of tea, the python body with blood flowing all over it finally stopped moving. Wei Hong then removed the formation and slowly walked towards the body of the black-scaled python. He looked at the broken black-scaled python, frowned and thought for a while, then frowned and said, "It's a pity to waste the monster blood, but this black-scaled python is so big, the monster meat is enough to eat for a long time." After that, Wei Hong started to move. He took out the flying sword, first used force to cut a python skin directly on the body of the black-scaled python, and then peeled off each piece of the python skin, stacked it up and put it into the storage bag. In addition, he also cut off the 4 fangs of the black-scaled python and put them away. These 2 things are the 2 most valuable monster materials on the black-scaled python, so Wei Hong would not let them go. Then he stored the python meat of the black-scaled python in batches in a storage bag as supplies for the next retreat. Fortunately, he had killed many robbery cultivators before and obtained a lot of storage bags, so that he could put all the things he prepared in. Otherwise, he might have to spend a lot of spirit stones to buy a few more large-capacity storage bags. After doing all this, Wei Hong waved his hand, and several fireballs fell down, burning all the traces of breath and blood left at the scene, so as not to attract the attention of some monsters. Then he walked into the cave without hesitation, ready to see if the small spirit vein was really in the cave. Walking into the cave, Wei Hong found that the ground of the passage of this cave also had traces of the black-scaled python sliding out frequently, but it was still dry and not very damp. The passage slightly bends to the left, and it becomes dim as soon as you enter it. It is obvious that the sunlight from the outside cannot shine into the cave, making the passage of the cave appear dark and dim. Wei Hong frowned slightly, thought about it, and took out more than 10 moonstones from his storage bag. Chapter 600, Spiritual Veins, Spiritual Springs. Every time Wei Hong walked forward 10 feet, he would embed a moonstone on the mountain wall. The moonstone, emitting a soft white light, instantly lit up the dark passage. Fortunately, Wei Hong had made all kinds of preparations before leaving the city, and had long anticipated that he would encounter similar situations, so he prepared dozens of moonstones, which just came in handy at this time. After walking more than 20 feet along the slightly curved passage, he finally came to a spacious cave. This is a very primitive and rough cave, with no traces of artificial chiseling. The cave is surrounded by uneven walls. The entire cave is about 2 feet high and more than 10 feet wide. The ground of the cave is slightly flat, but it is also covered with dust and various gravel. There are no facilities in this cave, which seems a bit empty. But as soon as Wei Hong entered it, he immediately cheered up. Sure enough, the spiritual veins gather in this cave. After he entered the cave, he immediately sensed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was richer than outside. The spiritual energy outside is at least twice as rich as here. If there is no spiritual vein passing through here or gathering here, there will be no such level of spiritual energy. Wei Hong is very sure of this. However, after he carefully scanned the area, he was immediately surprised. Spirit Eye Spring. Wei Hong couldn't help but exclaimed. Wei Hong saw that there was a miniature spring that kept bubbling with spring water near the stone wall in the deepest part of the cave. The spring water was different from the clear water. Instead, it was a light milky white, and there was a light white mist floating above the spring water. After just one look, Wei Hong was very sure that this must be the place he was looking for. Because the rich spiritual energy in this cave almost all came from this spring. Looking at the small spring, Wei Hong couldn't help laughing. Haha, it is indeed the Spirit Eye Spring. I didn't expect that such a spiritual spring would be formed in this cave. God really helps me. Surprised, he immediately squatted down and scooped up a pool of spring water to observe it carefully. Yes, this is definitely the Spirit Eye Spring, absolutely correct. Wei Hong was very sure. Then he couldn't help but put his hands into the spring water, and then murmured, although the spiritual energy contained in the spring water is not as exaggerated as the rumors, and this spring is also very small, it is indeed a rare Spirit Eye Spring in the world. Feeling the spiritual energy coming out of the water, his face was full of surprise and joy. The mist floating above the spiritual spring was clearly the liquefied spiritual energy of heaven and earth. When he approached just now, he felt a strong spiritual energy coming towards him. This is because the spiritual spring contains rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and even because the concentration of spiritual energy has reached the level of liquefaction, the overflowing spiritual energy has turned into a layer of light white mist floating above the spiritual spring, which looks quite wonderful. Wei Hong couldn't help but take a deep breath, and immediately felt refreshed. It is indeed a spiritual spring. The concentration of spiritual energy in this cave is at least twice as strong as the spiritual energy in my residence in Kangshan. Especially around this spiritual spring, it is more than 3 times stronger. Haha, it is indeed the legendary spiritual eye. Wei Hong laughed in surprise, and seemed extremely happy at this time. Speaking of spiritual springs, we have to mention the spiritual veins and spiritual eyes in the world of immortal cultivation. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth is not evenly distributed in the world, but some places are more concentrated, and some places are a little weaker. So over time, in places with strong spiritual energy, spiritual veins of varying sizes will generally form. Large spiritual veins may stretch for tens of thousands of miles without end, and small ones may only be a few miles in size, which is really pitiful. But no matter how big or small, once these spiritual veins are formed, they will automatically emit a faint spiritual energy, so that the local spiritual energy circulates endlessly and will never dry up. However, the spiritual energy produced in different places of these spiritual veins is not the same. Those places where the spiritual energy gathers the most are of course the most suitable for immortal cultivators to meditate and practice, so they are called spiritual eyes by the world of immortal cultivation. The so-called spiritual eyes are generally invisible and colorless, and can only be felt by the cultivators. However, any place called a spiritual eye represents the place with the most spiritual energy in the nearby spiritual veins. This is beyond doubt. Although in general, spiritual eyes are invisible and are just alternative names for a certain place, if the spiritual energy of a spiritual eye is too dense and can be maintained for a long time, it will gradually produce entities and form spiritual eye objects, such as spiritual eye trees, spiritual eye stones, spiritual eye springs, etc., and even the most advanced spiritual eye beads in legends. The appearance of these spiritual eyes is very rare, and all of them can only be formed after thousands or even tens of thousands of years of evolution. Therefore, the spiritual energy emitted by these spiritual eyes is much denser than that of ordinary spiritual eyes. Sitting in meditation and practicing near them will definitely have the miraculous effect of speeding up the practice. The best spiritual eyes can even speed up the practice of practitioners by nearly 20% to 30%. So even though this was just a small spiritual spring in front of Wei Hong, its value was immeasurable and it was of great help to his cultivation. Even without the help of elixirs, his cultivation speed would be much faster. How could Wei Hong not be surprised by the appearance of such a strange object here? Haha, not bad, not bad, this place is just right for me to practice in seclusion. Without any hesitation, Wei Hong immediately decided to set this place as his secret room for seclusion. Such an excellent place, with a rare spiritual eye spring, made him very satisfied with both the cultivation environment and the concentration of spiritual energy, and naturally he would not choose other places. After making this decision, he carefully checked the entire stone cave. It was found that there was nothing else in the stone cave except the spiritual eye spring. It was unknown how long the black-scaled python had been entrenched in this cave before. There was an area on the ground that was worn extremely smooth, and the fishy smell was extremely strong, which made people want to vomit. So he immediately took action, first cleaning the ground in the cave and sweeping away all the traces left by the black-scaled python, then took out his flying sword and used local materials to directly chisel out a stone bed, and then made a simple stand for stewing monster meat and spiritual rice. Finally, he used the wind spell to blow away all the smells in the cave, which made the whole cave look brand new. At the same time, next to the spiritual spring, Wei Hong also dug a small hole more than 3 feet wide on the ground, and dug more than 3 feet deep. It looked like a stone pit embedded in the ground. Well, not bad, it seems that I have to practice hard here for a while. After taking a few glances, Wei Hong nodded with satisfaction. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.